1. Using empathy to persuade others. During a tense standoff with someone who holds opposite views, it's crucial to find common emotional ground. By doing this, you can calm the atmosphere, resolve conflicts, and move toward persuading the other person. The story of Xulong convincing Empress Dowager Zhao is widely known and included in modern high school literature textbooks. However, there are different interpretations of this story's methodology. Literature teachers focus on the ideological content and writing techniques, although they also mention strategies, but that's not the main focus. Here, we analyze the story from a strategic perspective. In 265 BC, during the Warring States period in ancient China, a year marked significant changes. Following King Huiwen of Zhao's death, his young son succeeded him but was too young to govern, so his mother, Dowager Empress Zhao, ruled as regent. Meanwhile, the powerful state of Qin in the west saw an opportunity to advance its plans for unification and seized the chance to attack Zhao. Qin's strategists, who advocated for breaking alliances between states, saw this as an opportunity to weaken Zhao by promoting division among its allies. With Qin's forces threatening its borders and Zhao's military weak, the only option was to seek help from the neighboring state of Qi. However, Qi set a tough condition. They wanted Zhao's prince Zhang An as a hostage. This was a common strategic demand during that period. But since Zhang An was the youngest and most beloved son of Dowager Empress Zhao, she refused. The ministers of Zhao were frustrated, repeatedly trying to persuade her by highlighting the broader implications of her decision. The dowager, however, became angry at the suggestion of sending her son as a hostage, threatening to spit on anyone who proposed it again. This was because her deep maternal love clouded her judgment, and she held real power, leaving others helpless as disaster loomed. At this critical moment, Xulong, an elderly court official, requested an audience with the dowager. Respecting his status, she agreed to meet him. Despite his difficulty walking due to leg pain, Xulong made a special effort to visit, expressing his longing to see the dowager and discussing common old age ailments, which helped to soften her initial defenses. The two elderly individuals talked about everyday family matters, gradually growing closer emotionally. Xulong, however, had come with a clear agenda related to state affairs, though he didn't directly address it at first. Instead, he cleverly steered the conversation towards parental love, discussing his own underachieving son and asking the dowager to consider him for a position at court, which she agreed to. Xulong continued this indirect approach, discussing which of her children the dowager loved most, cleverly leading her to express a preference for her son Zhang An over others. He used this conversation to subtly highlight the risks of overly indulging one's children without preparing them for future challenges. Eventually, the dowager realized that her excessive love could harm her son's long-term interests, leading her to reconsider and agree to send him to Qi as a hostage, thus securing military support and saving the state. This story illustrates the power of empathy and indirect persuasion in achieving diplomatic goals. Xulong's ability to connect with the dowager on a personal level, using a common understanding of parental love, was key to changing her mind. In contrast, direct confrontation or logical arguments from other ministers had failed. This approach not only avoided immediate conflict, but also fostered a deeper understanding and acceptance of the necessary actions for the greater good. 2. Gradually moving to the crux of the issue. Proposing demands to the opponent sometimes requires indirect tactics, like using diversion or vague speech, making it unclear when the opponent has agreed. Every opponent has weaknesses. The key is whether you can identify and exploit them. Once you pinpoint an opponent's main vulnerability, you can break them with a single targeted attack. During the Warring States period, there was a famous figure, Meng Changjun. Mentioning Meng Changjun, people immediately think of him as a heroic and generous host who entertained 3,000 guests. Meng Changjun was a noble from the state of Qi who held the position of prime minister multiple times, advocating for meritocracy in politics. There was an instance when he had a disagreement with King Min of Qi, and in frustration, he resigned from his post and returned to his own land, Tiet. Shortly after his arrival in Tiet, a significant crisis occurred that Meng Changjun found difficult to manage. During the Warring States period, the states often attacked each other, much like children playing, which made relationships between neighboring states very unstable. At this time, the powerful state of So was advancing its troops towards Tiet. Compared to So, Tiet was tiny, like a pea, literally a bullet, with inferior military and resources. The consequences for Tiet were inevitable once So's troops arrived. In such a dire situation, the only option seemed to be seeking help from the state of Qi. However, Meng Changjun had just had a falling out with King Min, leaving him with no standing to ask for help and fearing that the king would refuse. This left him greatly troubled, almost unable to think of a solution. At this critical moment, Providence brought him a ray of hope. Shun Vu Khan, a senior official from Qi, visited Tiet. Shun was returning from a diplomatic mission to So and stopped by to see Meng Changjun. Meng Changjun was overjoyed, feeling as if heaven had assisted him. He had already devised a plan, going out of the city to welcome Shun and hosting a lavish banquet to entertain him. Who was Shun Vu Khan? According to the historical records' lively accounts, Shun Vu Khan was a short man with an ordinary appearance but adept at adapting to circumstances, and often succeeded in his missions without disgrace. Also recorded in Mencius, The Life of Shun, Shun Vu Khan, a man from Qi, was well educated and remembered, good at following others' intentions, and skilled at observing others' expressions and responding naturally. Shun Vu Khan was not only talented but also had close ties to the royal court. 3 generations of Qi kings, King Ui, King Tuyen, and King Min, all valued him highly. During King Ui's reign, he was entrusted with welcoming visiting dignitaries. Under King Tuyen, he was responsible for academic research and was a central figure in the community of scholars. During King Min's reign, he became a political advisor to the court and also had a personal relationship with Meng Changjun. Indeed, I must rely on him, Meng Changjun resolved, directly asking for help. I am about to be attacked by the state of So. The danger is imminent. I hope you can help me. Shun Vu Khan was also very decisive. Since you have asked, I will follow your order. Later generations surmised that Shun's trip had the purpose of rescuing his friend, but it was necessary for Meng Changjun to ask for help himself. In friendship, many things are understood without being stated, as has always been the case. Returning to Qi, Shun reported to King Min. The main topic, of course, was the outcome of his diplomatic mission. King Min asked, "What is the situation in So?" Shun Vu Khan, having prepared for this, leveraged the question to implement his strategy, fulfilling his promise to his friend. The situation is dire. So is stubborn, considering itself a major power, only thinking of overpowering the weak. As for Tiet, they do not know their own strength. King Min, hearing this, quickly asked, "What about Tiet?" Seizing the opportunity, Shun Vu Khan continued, "Tiet lacks self-awareness with no long-term vision. They are building a large temple for ancestor worship but have not considered whether they have the capacity to protect it. Now, the king of So is attacking this temple. I wonder what the consequences will be. Therefore, I say Tiet does not know its own strength and so is too obstinate. King Min's expression changed dramatically. Ah, so Tiet has such a large temple? He immediately ordered troops to rescue Tiet. Protecting the temples of ancestors is one of a king's greatest duties. To protect the temple, it was necessary to send troops to save Tiet, linking Tiet's danger directly to Q's. Faced with this risk, King Min set aside personal grievances with Mengchang Jun. Throughout, Xun Wukong did not directly ask King Min to send troops to save Mengchang Jun. Instead, he focused on what concerned the king the most, also the biggest vulnerability, and by indirectly pointing out the problem, made King Min take the initiative to send troops to save Tiet, effectively rescuing Mengchang Jun. Xun Wukong's maneuvering was truly masterful. This is a segment from The Warring States Strategies, included here to allow readers to appreciate the nuances. If one directly asked for military support, the outcome could be unpredictable. A skilled negotiator only points to the trend of events, and although it's just a hint, what's crucial is pointing directly at the danger, forcing the opponent to react immediately. In any matter, one should not rush. That is the mark of a persuasive person.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
3. Strategic persistence, the art of influencing through adaptation and determination. 1. Seizing opportunities. When you find a weak spot in your opponent's defenses, it's important to push forward and take full advantage of it. It's crucial to understand the true intentions of your adversaries multiple times. Once you identify their vulnerabilities, you can quickly gain the upper hand. 2. Strategic persistence. For instance, it may seem contradictory to say, stop when you reach your destination in one instance, and attack relentlessly when you find a weak spot in another. However, these two ideas are not opposites. They apply to different situations, much like the ever-changing scenarios in a battle. As a modern Chinese saying goes, start from the reality. 3. Historical example. The narrative of XIANG, a prominent reformer during the Warring States period, illustrates this point. XIANG, who lived during the time of the ancestors of Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor to unify China, had a unique relationship with Duke Xiao of Qin, the reigning monarch at the time. 4. First attempts. Historical records show that XIANG was initially recommended to Duke Xiao by a high official named Jing Qi. However, their first meeting did not go well. XIANG spoke passionately, but Duke Xiao seemed tired and half-listened. After this, Duke Xiao criticized Jing Qi for recommending XIANG, complaining about XIANG's unconventional ideas like imposing a cash tax. 5. Persistence and adaptation. Despite the initial setbacks, XIANG did not give up. He had a chance to meet with Duke Xiao again and spoke about different philosophies and strategies, but still failed to capture the Duke's interest. XIANG requested Jing Qi to arrange yet another meeting, hoping to finally resonate with Duke Xiao. 6. Final success. After several attempts during their final meeting, XIANG chose to discuss practical strategies for strengthening the state rather than abstract philosophies. This approach finally engaged Duke Xiao, who spent several days discussing these strategies with XIANG. 7. Analysis. This story shows that XIANG had to carefully probe and adjust his strategies until he found the right approach that resonated with Duke Xiao. Some analysts suggest that XIANG's meticulous and thoughtful planning, combined with his understanding of Duke Xiao's personality, allowed him to eventually succeed. His persistent efforts and strategic adjustments are seen as calculated moves rather than mere luck, leaving a lasting impression in ancient Chinese history. This narrative emphasizes the importance of understanding and adapting to the context, identifying critical vulnerabilities, and being persistent in your efforts to influence others. 4. Exploiting human weaknesses. Human nature is full of weaknesses. Being skilled at exploiting an opponent's weaknesses to create opportunities for oneself is one of the most powerful strategies from ancient tactics. In desperate situations, survival may seem like a matter of luck, but in reality, it is a combination of intelligence and resilience. The method involves targeting the opponent's vulnerabilities. Let's consider an example. In the state of Qi, there was an important official named Zhang Xu who was taken as a hostage to the state of Yan. Relations between the two states deteriorated, and Zhang Xu was constantly at risk of being killed. Unwilling to sit and wait for death, he decided to escape. When he reached the border, he was captured by Yan's soldiers, facing imminent danger. In this dire situation, Zhang Xu made a desperate attempt to save himself. He lied to the soldiers of Yan. "The king of Yan wants to kill me because someone falsely told him that I have many treasures, but these treasures were stolen by someone else. Now, the king of Yan insists I hand them over, and since I don't have them, I had to flee. If you take me back to the king of Yan, he will definitely demand the treasures. Since they were stolen, I might claim that you soldiers have swallowed them. Out of anger, the king might even cut you open to see if my claims are true. If that happens, I might die, but you will die before me." The soldiers of Yan, fearing for their own lives and convinced by Zhang Xu's reasoning, decided to release him rather than face potential death. This story is a classic example of attacking the opponent's weaknesses. Zhang Xu, in a precarious situation, adapted cleverly and ultimately escaped by exploiting the weaknesses of his captors. They all knew that the king of Yan was tyrannical and greedy, and they risked being punished themselves, so why invite trouble? The so-called attack on an opponent's weaknesses involves striking at their most vulnerable point. Some may argue that this is not a fair strategy, and others might feel guilty about it. Such actions must consider the circumstances and the opponent, weighing the benefits and risks. Like Zhang Xu's case, in situations where one is completely cornered, there's little room for blame. In reality, in institutions, negotiations, treaties, etc., there's always a measure of intellectual maneuvering, where both sides seek to find and exploit the opponent's weaknesses to gain the most favorable outcome. The tactics discussed in this article are purely about skill and do not pertain to morality, just as in a shooting class where you are taught to shoot but not to kill. 5. Gathering intelligence. Collecting intelligence related to your competitors can help you accurately assess the situation, relationships, and the actual capabilities of your opponents, and identify their vulnerabilities. To illustrate this point, let's consider a story from the Warring States period. There was a man who rose from a merchant to become a prime minister in the state of Qin. His name was Lu Buwei. Many historical accounts from that time mostly criticize him, describing him as cunning and deceitful, but they also acknowledge his intelligence and strategic mind. How could someone achieve so much without being smart? This book recounts his early strategies, highlighting a crucial move before he entered the political arena of Qin. Lu Buwei was trading in Handan, the capital of Zhao, where he met Ziyasuo, a hostage from Qin. Despite being a descendant of the Qin royal family, Ziyasuo lived in miserable conditions in Zhao. Lu Buwei, with his merchant's insight, saw Ziyasuo as a unique commodity and decided to invest in him. The term rare commodity speculation means buying something rare at a low price to sell it at a higher price to those who need it. Let's delve deeper into Lu Buwei's cunning plan. Lu Buwei met with Zhisuo, and after a long conversation he resolved to convert all his goods and money into gold. He gave half of this gold, 500 taels, to Zhisuo, and took the rest with him to Qin to start the process of selling Zhisuo to the royal family. At that time, the king of Qin was King XIANG, and Zhisuo was a royal grandson. His father had many sons from various concubines, making Zhisuo's position quite weak. Lu Buwei, however, targeted this disadvantaged prince, creating a significant political maneuver. His target was Lady Huayang, the favorite wife of Zhisuo's father and the most powerful woman in the palace, who had no sons. Understanding palace dynamics, Lu Buwei planned to sell Zhisuo to her. After arriving in Qin, Lu Buwei didn't approach Lady Huayang directly, but her sister, using her to influence Lady Huayang. This deeper strategic move is typical of Lu Buwei's cunning. The historical records don't detail how he persuaded Lady Huayang, but he successfully navigated this challenge. Lady Huayang's sister convinced her of the need to adopt a son who could inherit the throne, using their shared fears of losing favor and the lack of a biological son as leverage. This conversation persuaded Lady Huayang. She decided, at a moment when her husband was most affectionate, to tearfully request that he allow her to adopt Zhisuo and designate him as her heir. The king, deeply fond of her, could not refuse this request and soon brought Zhisuo from Zhao to be his successor. Zhisuo eventually became King Zhuangxiang, and his son was Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of a unified China. Lu Buwei became the prime minister during the reigns of both Zhuangxiang and Qin Shi Huang, gaining immense power. From a simple merchant to a two-time prime minister, Lu Buwei's rise highlights his unique insight. He saw Zhisuo as a unique commodity and used this to exploit Lady Huayang's vulnerabilities, a key to his success. This story emphasizes the importance of attacking an opponent's weaknesses. Lu Buwei's success was founded on a deep understanding of the internal affairs of the Qin royal house, akin to having precise intelligence. In modern society, where information is abundant, finding and using data related to an opponent's weaknesses is crucial for shifting the balance of power. This should be the primary task, ensuring the success of any strategic endeavor. 6. The nature of women. In some ways, a woman is most genuine when she appears most deceitful, as women are often governed by instinct. What is a common flaw among women worldwide? The story of Lambat V gets close to this topic, but in our previous article, we focused on gathering valuable intelligence, a segment about Truong Ningyi before implementing the Lianhuan policy is a fantastic example of how to engage with a woman's nature. Before becoming the prime minister of the Tang country, Truong Ningyi was a Thuyet Kach who traveled between states, enduring many hardships. During the Warring States period, these Thuyet Kach would go from state to state, proposing strategies and promoting themselves to pursue success in a competitive environment. This era, known as Bak Jia Chu Tu, was a period of great intellectual diversity in ancient Chinese history, worthy of deep study. Talking about Truong Ningyi before he became well known, he was just out of his humble abode, still not deeply understanding the world around him. The kings of various states did not trust this young man, and he struggled even to afford food and lodging while traveling. His followers, with no guarantee of 3 meals a day, mostly thought of leaving him. Truong Ningyi, distressed yet determined, said, Please endure a few more days until I meet with the king of So. At that time, King Hawaii of So was deteriorating the kingdom with corruption, ignoring loyal officials like NGUYEN. King Hawaii, misguided by flatterers and indulgent in desires, was unaware of the jeopardy his kingdom was in. After much thought, Truong decided to tap this monarch for some money. It took a lot of effort, but eventually Truong managed to meet with King Hawaii. Here's a part of their conversation. After such a long wait without a decision from you, I intend to go to the Ton country. Go ahead, you're welcome to. Does your majesty need anything from Ton? Our So is a great southern kingdom, rich in resources. What more could we need? Not even beautiful women. Well, that's a point. King Hawaii hesitated, and Truong quickly added, in the Central Plains, one often sees women as beautiful as celestial beings, which is truly captivating. True, our kingdom is large but somewhat remote. I've never seen such beauties from the Central Plains. If a few could come here to change their surroundings, that would indeed be interesting. The meeting concluded with King Hawaii rewarding Truong generously with money and treasures, clearly showing his intentions. Truong, now quite wealthy, was satisfied but had another, stronger desire driving him. He stayed in So, instructing his men accordingly. Soon, rumors that Truong would bring beautiful women from the Central Plains for King Hawaii spread widely and eventually reached the palace, alarming Queen Nam and Lady Trin too, the king's favored consorts and the two most beautiful women in So. The news terrified them, keeping them anxious all day. Before long, a messenger from Queen Nam visited Truong. I heard you will soon travel to the Central Plains, a journey surely fraught with hardships. Queen Nam, wanting to show her support, gifts you 1,000 caddies of gold to express her sincerity. Then, a messenger from Lady Trin too also came, presenting 500 caddies of gold and courteous words. Truong, having anticipated these generous gifts, stayed in So. With the money from King Hawaii and the additional funds, he was quite wealthy. Before departing, Truong played one last trick, a perfect ending. He went to bid farewell to King Hawaii. Thanks to your majesty's generosity, I will depart today. I do not know when we might meet again, so please allow me a farewell drink. Yes, let's have a drink. It would be even more delightful if someone your majesty favors could join us. That makes sense. King Hawaii, both foolish and debauched, spending his days drinking in the palace with Queen Nam on his right and Lady Trin too on his left, ordered the servants to bring them to drink. As the beautiful women gracefully arrived, Truong looked on intently, pretending to be surprised. Your Majesty, I have made a mistake. What is it? Speak freely. Having traveled the world, I can say I've seen much, but I have never seen anyone as celestial as Queen Nam and Lady Trin too. I once said I would. Bring beauties from the Central Plains for your Majesty. With these two here, it seems unnecessary. My sincere apologies. It's all right, you need not blame yourself. Indeed, I also know that there are hardly any beauties in the world that can compare to Queen Nam and Lady Trin too. King Hawaii was satisfied and somewhat proud. Queen Nam and Lady Trin too were also pleased and grateful. The happiest person, however, was Truong. With just a few clever words, he had earned a significant amount of human affection money. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 7. Skillfully praising others. Everyone knows that General Han Xin was a subordinate of Liu Bang during the Han and Chu rivalries. Han Xin was exceptionally talented and strategic, playing a crucial role in Liu Bang's unification of the country. Many stories about Han Xin have been passed down, with one of the most famous being from his early struggles. Once, to avoid conflict with a local thug, he endured the humiliation of crawling between the thug's legs, showing his patience and foresight. This story highlights Han Xin's vision and character. The text also talks about a period later in Han Xin's career. After helping Liu Bang conquer the realm, Han Xin inadvertently overshadowed his emperor, a major taboo at the time. He always worried about the proverb, "When the cunning rabbit is dead, the hunting dog is cooked." Emperor Liu Bang, aware of Han Xin's growing power but unable to justifiably execute him, tried to undermine his spirit without causing outright conflict, showing the dignity of an emperor. During this time, Liu Bang frequently spoke with Han Xin, often using clever and mocking words. One day they discussed what qualities a general should exhibit, leading to a disagreement. Liu Bang asked, "Do you think I can command tens of thousands of troops?" Han Xin replied, "Your Majesty can command 100,000 troops." Liu Bang then asked, "And what about you?" Han Xin said, "As Han Xin, the more troops, the better." This response subtly belittled Liu Bang, but the emperor just laughed and asked, "Even so, how did I manage to capture you?" Han Xin wisely responded, "Your Majesty's influence over the generals is greater than mine, but my influence is greater with the soldiers. You are the general of generals, and I am the general of soldiers. We cannot truly be compared." This conversation was Han Xin's tactful way of praising Liu Bang, carefully chosen to navigate a potentially dangerous situation, and yet it made perfect sense and came at the right time. The historical records do not detail Liu Bang's reaction, but logically, he likely remained calm. 8. Proper advising to superiors is necessary. Many modern society leaders heavily rely on deceitful and insincere people, commented an editor of a foreign magazine, clearly outraged. Though his statement may be biased, it contains some truth. Ancient Chinese history provides numerous examples where loyal and outspoken individuals often ended up without favorable outcomes, as many were prematurely executed for their candor. Those who could act for the greater good were even rarer. Psychologically, everyone has a sense of pride which intensifies with higher status, making them dislike being pointed out their flaws or mistakes. Therefore, advising should be tactful, not too direct, and should avoid too many confrontational interventions. Subtle and gentle persuasion is often the best approach. Emperor Taizong of Tang, a wise ruler in ancient Chinese history, was famously receptive to his advisors' feedback. Initially, his stern demeanor intimidated his court, but upon realizing this, he adjusted to a gentler, more approachable attitude, smiling and listening to his minister's advice, which greatly helped him understand and guide political trends. Despite his wisdom, Emperor Taizong's advisors couldn't always be blunt. They had to tactfully work around his pride, often circling around a point before speaking plainly. Wei Zheng, one of his most trusted advisors, is a prime example. Wei Zheng, known for his directness, also knew when to strategically cushion his words to respect the emperor's ego, which allowed him to effectively advise without offending. For instance, once Wei Zheng told Emperor Taizong, "Since serving your majesty, I have dedicated myself to the state. Moving forward, I must adhere more strictly to righteousness to not fail your graciousness. However, please consider me not just as a loyal servant but as a good minister, whose duty is to ensure the nation views you as a wise ruler and that your virtues are recognized by future generations." Emperor Taizong was puzzled and asked, "What is the difference between a loyal servant and a good minister?" Wei Zheng explained, Being a good minister means not only earning the people's praise but ensuring that you are seen as a just ruler by the nation and that your honor and virtues are remembered by posterity. Being merely a loyal servant often leads to personal risk and could drag the ruler into unjust actions, possibly even national disaster. History might remember a loyal servant as just that and nothing more. HONGZHANG was renowned for his outspokenness, yet he was mindful of the consequences, occasionally using indirect methods to appeal to Emperor Taizong's pride, subtly praising and then pausing, allowing the emperor to reflect. This approach was brilliantly tactful and effective. Emperor Taizong, highly intelligent, understood this point and thoughtfully responded, "I fully understand now. I will remember this conversation well and hope that we will avoid any wrong decisions regarding this matter." 9. Inspiring leadership beats. Commanding it. This is about inspiring someone's pride to encourage their decision-making in the direction you desire. In 208 AD, during the Three Kingdoms period, Liu Bei was badly defeated by Cao Cao and had to flee to Fan Pass, where his forces were weak. Facing Cao Cao's powerful army, Liu Bei had little hope of continuing the resistance without forming an alliance with Sun Quan in eastern Wu. If this crucial mission were assigned to a regular envoy, the message would likely be straightforward, describing the powerful enemy, admitting our dire situation, and pleading for military support. However, the only person capable of accomplishing this task for Liu Bei was Zhuge Liang, also known as Kong Ming. He confidently volunteered to cross the river and negotiate with the eastern Wu. His strategy was to appeal to Sun Quan's pride, successfully persuading him to join forces against Cao Cao, which later led to a strategic standoff among the three states. Now let's return to the story. During their meeting, Zhuge Liang told Sun Quan, "Currently, the realm is in chaos. You, General, have raised troops in eastern Wu, and Liu Bei is rallying in the south with the aim of challenging Cao Cao. Cao's forces are overwhelming, striking fear across the land, and no hero seems capable of standing against him. Moreover, Liu Bei's forces are gradually being defeated. It's time for you to strategize your resistance. If your forces can withstand Cao Cao, you should immediately sever ties with him. If not, it might be wiser to quickly surrender. It seems like you want to submit to Cao Cao, but are hesitant in your heart. The situation is urgent. There's no time left for hesitation. I hope you make your decision soon, as the consequences of delay could be dire." Stunned by these words, Sun Quan asked, "With such a grave situation as you describe, why hasn't Liu Bei quickly surrendered to Cao Cao?" Zhuge Liang replied, "You are mistaken. Perhaps you've heard of the warrior Tianheng, who chose death over surrendering to the Han dynasty. Liu Bei, a descendant of the Han, possesses a heroic nature. Despite his current plight, heroes from all over continue to join him, compelled by his reputation to fight against Cao Cao, a mandate of heaven. How could he possibly surrender to Cao Cao?" Hearing this, Sun Quan exclaimed, "With the inheritance of my ancestors and 100,000 troops at my command, how could I easily surrender?" At that moment, Sun Quan, a young general of 26, was full of youthful vigor and pride. Zhuge Liang skillfully exploited this trait, or weakness, using his words to inspire Sun Quan's resolve to turn in the direction he wanted. Although Sun Quan declared his refusal to surrender, he was not entirely sure and asked again, "In the current situation, apart from Liu Bei, I see no other force capable of contending with Cao Cao. But Liu Bei has been losing recently. Does he still have the strength to continue fighting?" This was precisely Sun Quan's concern, knowing well that solely relying on Eastern Wu's forces wouldn't suffice against Cao Cao. Zhuge Liang was prepared, calmly analyzing the situation to alleviate Sun Quan's concerns. Liu Bei has indeed suffered defeats, but he still commands no less than 10,000 troops. Though Chao's forces are numerous, they are exhausted from long marches. Just like the ancient saying, even the strongest bow cannot penetrate a thin cloth at too great a distance. Moreover, Chao's troops are not accustomed to naval battles, giving us a geographical advantage. The people of Jing province, while outwardly compliant, are always ready to rebel against Cao Cao. If you, General, can gather your elite troops and coordinate with Liu Bei's forces, we can surely defeat Cao Cao. With the right timing and geographical advantage, the rest depends solely on your decisive leadership. This analysis by Zhuge Liang highlighted the enemy's weaknesses and stressed the covert strengths of Liu and Wu, finally making the success of the mission depend on Sun Quan's resolve. This strategic maneuvering eventually led to the historic Battle of Red Cliffs, a significant conflict of the Three Kingdoms period, though this tale does not detail it further. 10. The tactics of Li Hongzhang. At the negotiation table facing a strong opponent, it's crucial to diminish their aura and expose their strengths. There's nothing better than using your wit to complement the other party. In traditional Chinese consciousness, Li Hongzhang is seen as a figure who compromised national sovereignty during the Qing dynasty. We're not here to judge his contributions or mistakes, but rather to extract the negotiation skills he displayed and consider them as examples. Li Hongzhang, who had significant military power and was physically robust, sat across from the physically smaller and weaker Japanese diplomat, Ito Hirobumi. It was unclear who represented the victorious nation, giving Li an underlying psychological advantage. Once the conference began, Li employed a strategy of flattery, aiming to regain some dignity after his nation's defeat in the war. He said, "In this war, the most regrettable thing is the high number of casualties from both nations, but it also taught us two important lessons, which are fortunate outcomes from our unfortunate circumstances." Li's vague speech prompted Ito Hirobumi to ask, "May I know what these two lessons are?" Many say that Europeans are superior to Asians. However, this war has shown that Asians are no less competent. If we Asians strive a bit more, we can undoubtedly match Europeans. That's the first lesson. Indeed, go on. The second lesson is that if our great Qing Empire deeply reflects on this defeat and undertakes reforms, I believe we'll transform into a strong modern nation within a few years. That makes sense. Throughout the negotiations, Li continued to demonstrate quick thinking, not dwelling on the sorrows of a defeated nation but bringing Japan, the victorious country, to a common level. He focused more on comparisons between Asians and Europeans, subtly leading his opponent into a trap he set, initially evoking empathy and emphasizing commonalities, which maintained dignity and directed the later parts of the negotiation favorably. After addressing these issues with Ito, Li continued, "The fate of a nation depends on whether its leaders are skilled in governance. If your country progresses rapidly after adopting modern policies, it's undoubtedly due to exceptional individuals like yourself. It can be said that without you, Japan wouldn't be what it is today." Ito Hirobumi, although publicly disagreeing, felt pleased internally, feeling validated in his role in Japan's modernization, which was more important to him than anything else. Li's flattering words were clever, but he sensed they weren't enough. Realizing Ito's pride, he decided to fully satisfy Ito's vanity. Our nation, in its current state, truly needs a politician like you to lead our people. It's hard to find such talented individuals within our country. Therefore, I sincerely invite you to come to our nation to serve as a prime minister and help us rebuild our country." Although Li knew such a proposal was impossible and expected a refusal, he understood that this would maximize Ito's sense of honor. Despite China's weakened state, it was still recognized as a major country, whereas Japan, despite its victory, was considered a third-tier nation in the East. Being invited to be a prime minister of a major country was a significant recognition. Li skillfully appealed to Ito's pride. From the beginning of the negotiations, he grasped this key point, which could be criticized as shameless or ignorant of disgrace, but in terms of skill, he successfully directed the negotiations in a favorable direction for himself. This alone could be considered a success.
If you like this video, please comment 1, and if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
11. Understanding pros and cons, gains and losses. The concepts of benefits and drawbacks, gains and losses, are timeless themes in the strategies of ancient peoples. During the Warring States period in ancient China, there was significant social reform, and it was also a time when stronger states would dominate the weaker ones. After years of warfare, 7 powerful states remained: Qi, Chu, Yan, Han, Zhao, Wei, and Qin, each vying for dominance. The term warring states refers to an era marked by constant warfare, where relationships between neighboring states were often unstable, with allies becoming enemies overnight. Wars grew increasingly brutal, with battles involving hundreds of thousands of soldiers. For example, the Battle of Changping between Qin and Zhao was particularly fierce and disastrous for Zhao, which never recovered. Virtually all men of fighting age were killed. This period was notable for continuous warfare and also for very dynamic diplomatic strategies. It led to the emergence of many itinerant persuaders who traveled far and wide to argue on behalf of their rulers, using clever strategies and philosophical insights. Their efforts greatly advanced scholarship and left a rich legacy that is admired to this day. Among these diplomats, the most famous were those who advocated the strategies of allying widely and attacking selectively, which had a significant strategic impact on the rivalry among the 7 states. This strategy represented 2 typical diplomatic approaches. The main figures of this strategy were Su Qin and Zhang Yi. Qin, during the Warring States period, gradually established a dominant position, while the other 6 states were in a weaker position and needed to form alliances against Qin due to military and political necessities. Su Qin was a key proponent of forming broad alliances. Initially not valued in Qin, he traveled to other states to promote this strategy. Su Qin was undoubtedly a diplomatic genius with keen insight, seeing the peril facing these states and realizing that their only chance of survival was through unity. Conversely, if this broad alliance strategy succeeded, it would pose a severe threat to Qin. Therefore, Zhang Yi, representing Qin's interests, worked tirelessly to undermine this alliance strategy, using various schemes and seizing every opportunity to promote an alternate strategy of selective alliances. Su Qin and Zhang Yi, from opposite perspectives, both showed a deep understanding of the benefits and risks involved when implementing their strategies. Initially, Su Qin's strategy was praised and supported by the state of Zhao. He then convinced other states to join the alliance, a task fraught with difficulties due to historical enmities and different cultural practices. In contrast, Zhang Yi criticized this alliance strategy, suggesting that it was delusional and arguing that aligning with Qin would be a more practical and safer choice. He warned that failing to align with Qin could lead to isolation and eventual conquest. Both diplomats exerted considerable effort in persuading their targets by analyzing the potential benefits and risks, showcasing the ancient Chinese understanding of diplomacy over 2,000 years ago. Their work exemplifies the delicate balance of pressing and enticing in international relations, which is similar to the Western diplomatic concept of carrot and stick. 12. The failure of idealism. The essence of strategy is realism and self-interest. Its methods and goals are all driven by profit. During that time, among the traveling speakers across nations, there was a historical figure named Mencius. Mencius left a brilliant cultural legacy in ancient China. In the eyes of later generations, his accomplishments were considered greater than those of Sun Tzu or Zhang Yi. However, in his own time, Mencius was seen as a failure, someone who faced obstacles wherever he went. His failure was not due to a lack of scholarly knowledge, but because he was out of touch with reality and pushed for the implementation of royal governance that did not fit the times. Therefore, we say Mencius was a scholar for the ages, but also a failure in terms of idealism. Once, Mencius had an audience with King Hui of Wei. King Hui had long admired Mencius's great reputation, and upon meeting him, he was very pleased and directly asked, "Sir, you have traveled a long way. What advice do you have for me that could benefit my country?" Mencius responded, "Why do you start and end every conversation with benefits? I believe that the most important thing for a ruler should be benevolence." Mencius earnestly continued, "Every lord only thinks about the benefits for their own state. High officials only consider their own career advancements and personal honors. Local officials and the common people think only of their own small benefits, like food and housing. If everyone only pursues their own interests, the country will surely perish. The one who can overthrow the king of a state with 10,000 chariots must be a high official of a state with 1,000 chariots. The one who can overthrow the king of a state with 1,000 chariots must be a high official of a state with 100 chariots. In a state with 10,000 chariots, enjoying the benefits of 1,000 chariots, and in a state with 1,000 chariots, enjoying the benefits of 100 chariots should be quite satisfying. Yet, this is often not the case, as they still strive to seize the entire state. The root cause of this is the absence of benevolence in their hearts. Only self-interest prevails. Those who still have a conscience cannot bear to be without their parents, and historically, there has been no example to the contrary. On the path of benevolence, those who would harm a king have never arisen. Great king, please prioritize benevolence and stop discussing mere benefits." Mencius's words were sincere and full of philosophy, but they were irrelevant to King Hui of Wei during the Warring States period. At that time, the rulers schemed against each other, acting solely for benefit, competing for power, and forgetting about benevolence. Mencius firmly believed in his ideals, promoting benevolence and advocating royal governance everywhere he went. Unfortunately, as times changed like the tides, no ruler supported his policies, and he eventually chose to live in seclusion. This became his greatness and also his limitation. In contrast, Sun Tzu and Zhang Yi were realists who actively adapted to the times. Their policies were different, but both focused on the immediate interests of their states, targeting the current authorities, using benefits as a weapon, and advancing their diplomatic missions through skillful handling of interests. 13. Intentionally acting out of the ordinary. The effectiveness of intentionally acting out of the ordinary lies in its ability to quickly grab someone's attention. In ancient Qi, the prime minister, Tin Quach Quan, Dien An, father of QUAN, wished to build a fortress in the land granted as the Tiet territory. His intention was partly to boast and partly to defend against invasions. His subordinates, however, opposed this plan. The issue was simple. Such actions would likely lead to suspicion and internal conflict within the key royal family. If not handled carefully, QUAN Dien An could lose his position as prime minister, leaving his subordinates without a means of support. Despite their concerns, the proud prime minister did not perceive the threat nor understand his subordinates' worries. His subordinates took turns trying to persuade him to abandon the fortress construction plan. However, because their objections largely missed the main point and instead offended QUAN, he issued an order. From now on, no subordinate may enter. Yet, one courageous and clever subordinate boldly approached him, saying, "I will speak 3 sentences, and if I exceed that, you may cook me in a pot." After saying this, he waited outside the door. Curious, QUAN had to meet him. The subordinate approached and said, "Fish, big, change." These were not 3 sentences, but 3 unrelated words. After speaking, he turned to leave. Confused by the subordinate's actions, QUAN calmed down and then shouted, "Come back here and explain clearly." "I don't want to die yet," the subordinate replied. QUAN assured him, "Speak your piece, and I guarantee you won't die." The subordinate explained, "Do you know the big fish? Because it's so large, it cannot be caught with a rod. It's only powerful in the water. If it doesn't understand its own limits and leaps onto the shore, then a mere ant colony would suffice to consume it completely. For you, Qi is just like that. If you leave Qi for a small piece of Tiet territory, no matter how high your fortress walls, can they really protect you from others?" Reflecting on this, QUAN eventually abandoned his construction plans. The Strategies of the Warring States doesn't record the name of this subordinate. It only mentions that he was one of many from Qi. During the Warring States period, the role of subordinates was complex. Many scholars and strategists came to serve in the households of the nobility, hoping for a chance to achieve greatness. This was a special social class, assured of their livelihood, who could step forward in times of need to repay their patrons' kindness. The advice of such subordinates, if accepted by their masters, not only fulfilled their duty, but often led to greater respect and opportunities for advancement. It was these motivations that drove the clever subordinate from Qi to take such bold and strategic action. The story of my first days in high school during the Cultural Revolution similarly involved unexpected actions. Disinterested in traditional education, we students preferred to join the older students in protests, which was typical of the early revolutionary period. Amidst this chaos, a new, young, and polite teacher arrived. Instead of introducing himself in the noisy classroom, he silently pulled out a white handkerchief and waved it slowly, a simple yet surprising action that immediately quieted the room. After restoring order, he empathetically addressed us, sharing his background and hopes for us. This experience and the teacher's unconventional approach left a lasting impression on me. It highlighted that sometimes an unexpected action can yield significant results, aligning with the strategic wisdom from ancient times. This technique, though deep in skill, could not prevent later misfortunes, making the memory of that teacher all the more poignant. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 14. Reverse psychology. Reverse psychology is a tactic aimed at provoking a reaction from the opponent, causing them to reveal their true intentions. Among the 3,000 disciples of Confucius, there were 70 of notable wisdom. Comparable to one of his prominent disciples, Yan Hui, was Zigong. Zigong was naturally intelligent and quite eloquent. Once he asked Confucius, "What defines a gentleman?" Confucius replied, "One who can fully accomplish the tasks assigned by their master." In fact, Zigong had the qualifications and conditions to be such a person. Once, the de facto leader of the state of Qi, Tianchang, plotted a rebellion but failed due to poor planning. He then considered moving his troops to the state of Lu to devise a better strategy. Lu, located in today's Shandong province and the homeland of Confucius, was culturally advanced but politically and economically small. The news of Tianchang's intentions caused great fear throughout Lu. Confucius and his disciples discussed countermeasures. Who can devise a strategy to save Lu? The first to respond was Zi Lu, a brave soul who volunteered to confront Tianchang and stop him. Although Zi Lu was a capable student under Confucius, his straightforward and brave nature was not suited for diplomatic tasks, and Confucius did not approve. Then Zi Zhang and Zi Shi stepped forward, both intelligent youths. However, considering Zi Shi was only 12 years old and too young, Confucius also disagreed. Lastly, Zi Gong volunteered, and Confucius, knowing his disciples well, did not hesitate to approve his request. Zigong went on a diplomatic mission which, after its completion, led him to visit other states like Wu, Yue, and Jin, creating significant diplomatic impact. Sima Qian recorded these events in detail in Tmi, Records of the Grand Historian, biography of Zhong Ni. Here, we focus on how Zigong stopped Tianchang's plan to attack Lu. Zigong used a strategy that was beyond everyone's expectations, suggesting the absurd. "You plan to attack Lu, but in my view it's a mistake. Lu isn't worth attacking. Its walls are thin and low, its moats are shallow and narrow. The king of Lu is neither wise nor virtuous, his officials are ignorant, and the soldiers and citizens lack combat capability. It's meaningless to conquer such a state. Instead, consider attacking Wu, where the situation is entirely different, with strong walls and deep moats, sharp weapons, and a skilled army. Such a state is easier to attack." This reverse statement implied that Tianchang lacked the capability, suggesting he was only strong against the weak. Tianchang became furiously insulted. "You make easy things sound hard and hard things sound easy, trying to open my mind or just mocking me." Tianchang knew of Zigong's reputation and was initially attentive to his advice. However, he was infuriated by Zigong's outrageous suggestions. Zigong calmly explained, "First, don't be angry. Let me continue. From a political perspective, if internal troubles arise, attack a strong state. If external troubles arise, attack a weak state. Given your current situation, it clearly falls into the former category, with many internal troubles. I have always admired your achievements in Qi, but your potential promotions have turned into nothing, mainly due to the jealousy of Qi's influential officials. The current plan to attack Lu, what would be the outcome? If successful, it would increase Qi's territory, making the king more arrogant and his jealous officials more united against you. Your achievements might make the king distance himself further from you. Have you considered this? If you were to engage in battle with a strong state like Wu and lose, it would unite your country internally, and those who envy you would have to focus more on national security, making the king rely more on you. Wouldn't you then be in a position to lead Qi?" This discussion made Tianchang realize, amidst the complex power struggles at the Qi court, that increasing external pressure was the only way to make the king depend on him, making his rivals fearful and solidifying his position. After consolidating power, he could wait for another opportunity to pursue his plans. Tianchang, awakening as if from a dream, silently agreed to Zhigong's strategy. This example is worth analyzing. Zhigong used reverse reasoning to initially disorient Tianchong, using reverse psychology effectively. The key was making Tianchong doubt himself initially, then providing a seemingly simple and only logical solution, leading him into the trap willingly. The success of persuasion lies in this critical point. To persuade successfully, first understand the opponent, their thoughts, and their true objectives. Tianchong's goal wasn't to conquer Lu territorially. It was more about easing his domestic troubles in Qi and expanding his power. Zhigong, observing this, suggested, "To solidify your power, you should attack the strong state of Wu." This idea hit Tianchong's vulnerabilities, ensuring his acceptance. Thus, it not only averted danger for Lu, but also advanced Lu's diplomatic strategy at that time, shifting the focus to Wu and enhancing the changes in the regional dynamics during the Warring States period. The unreasonable statements made earlier were tactics to create a situation beyond the opponent's expectations, enhancing the effectiveness of later persuasion. This reasoning resembles the big fish in the sea scenario discussed earlier. It starts by confusing the opponent, then capturing their attention, and finally leading them aboard the ship. Once the journey begins, it's no longer up to them, linking the thoughts together, whether this chain of reasoning is clear and decisive, becoming gradually apparent to the observer. 15. Winning with surprise tactics. In tough negotiations, a clever diplomat often breaks conventional rules and speaks in startling terms to win through surprise tactics. Su Qin and Zhang Yi are the most famous figures in the art of manipulation. Su Qin widely promoted the vertical alliance strategy, fostering an alliance among 6 states and even serving as prime minister to these states, gaining notable achievements. However, the alliance soon fell apart as the horizontal alliance, represented by Zhang Yi, aggressively challenged it. The internal strife among the 6 states ultimately led to the dissolution of their union against the Qin state. Disheartened, Su Qin retired to the state of Yan, where he initially found success. Lord Yan of Yan was his close friend and the first to support his alliance policy. After Lord Yan's death, Su Qin's situation became precarious. The new ruler, Prince Yi of Yan, married a daughter of the King of Qin. Given Su Qin's policy was directed against Qin, maintaining a close relationship with Prince Yi was challenging. Su Qin faced increasing difficulties. Amidst this crisis, King Tuo of Qi took advantage of Yan's mourning period to launch an attack, seizing 10 cities. Prince Yi blamed Su Qin, demanding that he negotiate with Qi to return the captured territories. This mission was daunting, with no leverage or strategies available to limit the opponent. The nature of Su Qin was the opposite of Zhang Yi's. While Zhang might have used cunning, Su Qin silently endured the irrational demands and quietly accepted the task. Upon reaching Qi, Su Qin greeted King Tuo by congratulating him on expanding his territories, but soon switched tone to lament the fate of Qi, suggesting impending disaster. This dual approach left King Tuo puzzled. Su Qin explained using a metaphor. Just as a starving person avoids food tainted by wild birds, knowing it hastens death, so should King Tuo consider the implications of offending Qin, a powerful state allied with Yan through marriage. Realizing the gravity of the situation, King Tuo, a wise and politically astute ruler, was prepared for Su Qin's arguments and the potential military support from Qin for Yan. Su Qin, leveraging his diplomatic skills, suggested that returning the territories to Yan would not only be wise but also enhance Qi's standing with both Yan and Qin, ultimately benefiting all parties involved. This negotiation wasn't straightforward, and Su Qin had to carefully persuade through unexpected methods, including both praise and mourning, to break down the opponent's defenses. He used a mix of threats and face-saving measures, ultimately securing the return of Yuan's territories without any concessions. 16. Tactful understanding. The other party is a significant figure, and we should not casually offend him. It's necessary to use tactful words in a way that he will understand implicitly. The person mentioned in this article is just a minor character, merely a servant beside the king. In the past, every king had several outspoken advisors. Their duty was to correct the king when he made mistakes. If the court lacked such advisors, the king would not recognize his errors, leading to major national missteps. This practice was common in ancient Chinese history, known as outspoken advisors risk their lives, a role that neither civil nor military officials desired. Though the rule existed, its application varied by individual and situation. Among enlightened rulers during prosperous times, some listened to these corrective voices, none more famous than Emperor Taizong of Tang. But under foolish and incompetent rulers, these advisors were often at great risk. Among the advisors to King Zhao of Qin was one named Zhong Qi. In a national debate, Zhong Qi firmly stood by his opinions, showing no compromise, which greatly angered King Zhao. Despite this, Zhong Qi, known for his straightforwardness, calmly left the royal palace. King Zhao, although a wise ruler who laid the groundwork for Qin's eventual unification of China, became angry and could not forgive Zhong Qi's arrogance. The other advisors merely nodded in agreement, not daring to speak further. Some who were pleased with others' misfortune secretly enjoyed this. Zhong Qi, you must die. After the court session, King Zhao was still very angry. At this time, only a servant was with him. The servant said to King Zhao, "Zhong Qi, this man's resolute and spirited nature indeed makes him a headache, but luckily he met a monarch who understands reason and is forgiving, preventing the situation from escalating. If such a situation occurred under cruel rulers like Ji or Ju, it would inevitably lead to severe consequences." The term resolute and spirited in modern language, originally Han person in the records of the warring states, refers to a stubborn personality that others find unbearable, often used in a derogatory sense. This servant compared Zhong Qi to a fierce person, while portraying King Zhao as a wise ruler. If following the arrogance and solemnity of the king, punishing Zhong Qi would be typical, nothing unusual. But the servant's words effectively prevented the king from descending into the same level as tyrants like Ji and Zhu. In this conversation, instead of bluntly saying, "If you punish Zhong Qi for a minor issue, you will be a tyrant like Ji or Zhu," the servant first subtly flattered the king as a wise ruler, thus protecting King Zhao's pride while preventing him from sinking into unjust actions. This was indeed very shrewd. Typically, those who speak out to shift situations or mediate usually defend the one being mediated, covering up for them by praising their qualities or loyalty to the king. Commonly, the phrase would be, "It would be a pity to kill this person." However, this servant did the opposite, underestimating Zhong Qi, elevating King Zhao, and warning him through a strong implied message, which was much more effective than straightforward contradiction. This servant's display allows us to appreciate his high skill and understand his difficult position. The relationship between him and the king is that of master and servant, a vast difference in status, hence the need for such a clever strategy, almost like a subtle hint to alert the master, a kind of comment with a clear purpose, good or bad. 17. skillfully using satire. The essence of satire involves both subtle and overt criticism. It is used to clarify morals and provoke the opponent. During the Warring States period, a diplomat named Wang Du skillfully employed both forms of satire to successfully persuade King Xuan of Qi. When Wang Dao first met King Xuan, he was treated with great generosity. However, Wang Du, wanting to make a stronger impact, declined the king's offers, saying, "Your Majesty has been very kind to me and I am grateful. However, if word gets out, people might think I'm just flattering the powerful. On the other hand, if you were to invite me openly, people would say, 'The king truly values talent.' What do you think, Your Majesty?" King Xuan was slightly surprised and paused before replying, "Sit for a while. I will return shortly." Soon someone came and invited Wang Du to meet in the inner palace. King Xuan thought this was enough to maintain Wang Du's dignity and asked him, "I carry the heavy responsibility of leading this country and protecting our heritage. You are known for your honesty. Now that you are specially invited, do you have any advice?" Wang Dao responded, "O born in turbulent times, forced to serve a less capable king, how can I freely speak my truth?" King Xuan looked displeased. "Wang Du, you are disrespectful again. Why do you keep making such bold statements?" Wang Dao, noticing the tension, realized it was a critical moment. His earlier statements were meant to set the stage for a deeper discussion, and he switched tactics. "Your ancestor Du Quan of Qi was respected by all under heaven and liked 4 things, but it seems you only like 3 of them." "Which one am I missing?" King Xuan asked, his mood softening. "Du Quan loved talented horses, and so do you, right? He liked good hunting dogs, and so do you, right? He appreciated beautiful women, and so do you. These 3 things you have in common. But unlike Du Quan, who also loved talented people, you don't seem to value talent as much." This provoked King Xuan, but he restrained his displeasure and responded, "Where are these talented people you speak of? It's not that I don't appreciate talent, it's that there seems to be a lack of it." Wang Du countered, "Although there are no mythical creatures, there are still fine horses to ride. While we don't have the legendary hunting dog Lu Shi to chase the cunning Dong Quoch Tuan rabbit, we have many good dogs in the palace, and although there are no legendary beauties like Shi Shi or Wang Zhao Jun, the palace has many beautiful women. You appreciate all these, yet you don't show the same appreciation for talent. Why is that?" "I deeply care for my people and my country, and I sincerely wish to employ the best talents to govern," the king replied, softening further. "But even then, you don't value talent as much as you value fine silk," Wang Du pointed out. "How can you say that? When it comes to tailoring your clothes, you don't rely on those close to you but seek the best craftsmen from outside. Governing a country should be similar, but you rely only on those close to you." This conversation, using storytelling and satire to convey the truth, eventually brought the discussion back to the main point. If the political system is to be transparent, it must openly recruit the best talents. King Xuan, ultimately a wise ruler, realized his previous approach was short-sighted and promptly changed his staffing policies, leading to a much improved government.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
18. Playing the villain. To achieve a specific goal, one might intentionally present oneself as the antagonist in front of an opponent. By deliberately thinking one thing and saying another, you can actually evoke a sense of authenticity in the other person. Using a contrasting argument can make your opponent step beyond their own thoughts, leading to a resolution in a difficult situation. Previously, we introduced the servant of King Zhao with his wise actions. One of his guests under General Jing's command even performed better than the example above. General Jing is the father of HONGZHANG, who, along with his son, served as prime minister of the key state across 2 generations, belonging to a prestigious family of that era. Historical records show that HONGZHANG had 3,000 guests, and his father, General Jing, also had many. Among Jing's guests was Qi Mao Bian, a man with many flaws and who was the least compatible with other guests. However, Jing, with his unique observational skills, overlooked these flaws and grew even fonder of Mao Bian, paying special attention to his food and lodging more than to ordinary people. Mao Bian was often described by other guests as aloof and hard to get along with. These complaints were not supported by Jing, and some who accused Mao Bian were dismissed by him, even leading to HONGZHANG being reprimanded by his father. Moreover, Jing wanted to elevate Mao Bian's status, treating him with the highest regard among all his guests, indicating a very special, unspoken agreement between them. After King Yu of Qi passed away, King Xuan took the throne. King Xuan and General Jing were half-brothers with a complex familial relationship that led to power struggles and discord between them. Upon King Xuan's ascension, General Jing resigned as prime minister and retired to the region of Tiet, a land granted to him. Not long after moving to Tiet, Mao Bian expressed a desire to return to the capital. Knowing his wish to leave, Jing sincerely said, "King Xuan not only despises me, but also has a very bad impression of you. This time, if you return to the capital, I fear it will bring more harm than good." Mao Bian calmly replied, "I have made up my mind I am not afraid to die, so please don't worry about me." The saying, "A noble man dies for his beloved," resonates with many ancient stories, and Mao Bian's stance is noteworthy. He was not afraid of death, but dying was not enough to repay his master's kindness. His departure was meant to fulfill a mission that his master could not address, and no one else could complete. Mao Bian's final arrangement led to a meeting with King Xuan, which was difficult, but the two understood each other well. King Xuan said, "People say General Jing highly favors you, always following your words and strategies." Mao Bian, prepared for this, seemed to have waited for this question to begin. Indeed, he cares a lot about me and values me greatly, but the most important intent of mine he did not adopt. Now I no longer want to hide it. This is about when the great king was still crown prince. I said the crown prince's appearance was not good. His lower jaw protruded and his eyes had a fierce and cruel light, signs of a traitorous nature. I thought for my master and suggested he take action early to depose the crown prince to avoid future trouble. But General Jing loudly criticized me and warned me against speaking nonsense anymore, or he would drive me out. Alas, he did not listen to me, and today's situation is also fated. Mao Bian continued with more fabricated stories. Another time, after General Jing had retired to Tiet, a high official from the state of So suggested exchanging a land double the size of Tiet for Jing's land. I strongly wanted the exchange, for it would mean more land and safety from King Xuan's oppression. Why not make the exchange? But General Jing said that Tiet was gifted by the former king, and despite the current bad relations with King Xuan, he did not want to act disloyally towards the former king. Moreover, the ancestral temple of the former king was in Tiet. How could we possibly hand over even the ancestral temple to someone else? Thus, two important suggestions of mine were rejected by him. I had no choice but to leave him and return to the capital to seek other opportunities. By sharing these incidents, Mao Bian portrayed actions harmful to King Xuan or disadvantageous to the state of Qi, all from his own calculations, which could make King Xuan believe such things were true. King Xuan, moved by this conversation with Mao Bian, decided to restore friendly relations with General Jing. This type of maneuvering is rare in conventional texts, except for the deep bond between Mao Bian and General Jing, determined to repay his master's kindness with his death. Technically, Mao Bian understood that only with a basis could he induce the opponent to naturally select what he aimed to achieve. Achieving this goal through ordinary persuasion is very difficult, almost hopeless. King Xuan knew very well that Mao Bian was a loyal servant of General Jing, so if Mao Bian spoke well on behalf of Jing, King Xuan would be less likely to believe it. Conversely, by adopting the identity of someone who had abandoned his master and knew much about many matters, speaking ill made the opponent more trusting. But speaking ill and harboring ill intentions originated from Mao Bian himself, naturally making King Xuan consider their brotherly feelings. At this point, all that was left was to fall into the trap Mao Bian had set. Typically, to resolve a conflict between A and B, a mediator does not want to affect their own position regardless of the method. If mediation fails, the mediator is not responsible. If successful, both A and B will be grateful. From Mao Bian's perspective, initially considered aligned with General Jing, he could not but speak of matters contrary to ordinary morality, ultimately playing the role of a villain and achieving his goal. This required intelligence, courage, and profound understanding. 19. Persistent persuasion as an effective strategy. Persistent persuasion involves repeatedly emphasizing a point until you achieve your goal. This method can be particularly powerful against stubborn opposition. Zhao Pu, who served as prime minister under the first two emperors of the Song dynasty, is a notable example of someone who employed this tactic effectively. Despite being less scholarly than his peers, his loyalty and political achievements were very clear. After becoming prime minister, Emperor Taizu noticed his lack of scholarly knowledge and gently advised him to read more. Zhao Pu then devoted himself to studying and never left his books aside. This story illustrates Zhao Pu's careful nature and his efforts to continuously improve himself. He dedicated his life to supporting the Song dynasty and viewed helping to govern the empire as his duty. Zhao Pu was known for his patience. One time, Zhao Pu recommended an official to Emperor Taizu, who initially disagreed. Zhao didn't give up. He proposed the same official the next day and again the following day. On the third day, even though the emperor angrily tore up the proposal, Zhao picked up the pieces, carefully repaired them, and presented them once more. This moved the emperor, who eventually approved the appointment. Zhao Pu faced a similar situation with another official. Despite the emperor's dislike for this official, Zhao persisted out of fairness, repeating his request until the emperor reluctantly agreed. When the emperor asked what Zhao would do if he still disagreed, Zhao replied, "Wrongdoers must be punished, and the meritorious must be rewarded. This is an ancient teaching and a principle that should not be changed based on personal likes or dislikes." This approach to repeated persuasion, sometimes referred to as nailing one's point home, involves patient and persistent advocacy. It's essential, however, to use this method judiciously. Overdoing it can backfire, leading to loss of favor with the other party. Thus, careful handling is necessary to ensure success. 20. How to deal with repeated persuasion attempts. The story of Tang Sam committing murder is a classic example of persuasive methods. This technique, when misused, can turn falsehoods into truths. Such tactics require careful planning. In ancient times, the primary targets of persuaders were kings, ministers, and nobles. Persuaders knew that opportunities to use persuasion repeatedly were rare. For example, as mentioned earlier, Thuong Wang succeeded only after 3 attempts to present his case, which is exceptional for those of lower status in society. Although repeatedly persuasive methods can be very effective, sadly, such opportunities are hard to come by. Especially challenging is that once the king hears the persuader's proposals, the close advisors who have regular access to the king might disagree, leaving no room for the persuader to defend his ideas, often leading to failure near success. If the king's close advisors also use repeated persuasion, the outcome is usually clear. Such scenarios among the king's advisors could also lead to similar situations. The opinion of one advisor is accepted. Another, who may be a political rival in a more advantageous position, always has the opportunity to overturn it. So what should one do? Those with foresight understand that after their proposal is accepted, a single persuasion session is not enough. They must prepare further steps to continue persuading multiple times. Take the example of Kam Mao from the state of Tan. Kam Mao was a persuader introduced to King Hui of Qin by Zhang Yi. After King Wu succeeded King Hui, Zhang Yi left for the state of Wei, but Kam Mao was promoted to prime minister. Once, King Wu sent Kam Mao to persuade the king of Wei to ally and attack the state of Han together, a difficult task. Despite King Wu's trust in Kam Mao's abilities, he was uneasy and sent a special envoy, Huang Tho, to monitor Kam Mao. After successfully persuading the king of Wei, Kam Mao told Huang Tho, "Please report back to King Wu that Wei has accepted our proposal, but advise not to attack Han immediately. By completing this task, all credit for this diplomatic mission will belong to you." King Wu was thrilled with the report and planned to welcome Kam Mao back and discuss why they should not immediately attack Han. Kam Mao explained, "Attacking Han is agreed upon and can be implemented immediately, but I have concerns about our preparedness and potential criticism if the plan isn't perfect." He also shared the story of Tang Sam committing murder to illustrate the power of repeated persuasion. In the land of Phi, another man named Tang Sam committed a murder. When people mistakenly reported that Tang Sam had killed someone, his mother initially ignored the rumors. However, after hearing it 3 times, she reacted. Tang Sam's mother deeply trusted her son, yet she couldn't withstand 3 false reports. "I'm not Tang Sam, nor am I as noble. How many in Qin don't trust me as she trusted her son?" Thus, Kam Mao expressed his concerns about the crucial moment when even King Wu might turn against him if influenced by others. Ultimately, despite the difficulties in the military campaign against Han, King Wu remembered his promise to trust Kam Mao, which led to their eventual success in capturing the city of Yingyi. This story highlights the complexities and the importance of repeated, strategic persuasion in ancient political and military contexts. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 21. The Dangers of Rumors. A lesson from Pang Tong's wisdom. The story, 3 People with a Tiger in the Market, teaches us a frightening truth about human speech. Repeatedly told lies often become believed as truth, leading to terrible consequences. In the state of Wei, there was an important official named Pang Tong. Both he and another man named Kam Mao were intelligent and experienced, but while Kam Mao succeeded, Pang Tong faced a disastrous failure. This wasn't due to a lack of foresight or preparation. Rather, it highlights the importance of perspective in thinking. The king of Wei tasked Pang Tong with accompanying the crown prince to the capital of Zhao, Handan, as a hostage. Pang Tong knew the king well and had thoughtfully considered the potential benefits and dangers of this mission. He understood that whether he succeeded or not, the outcome would be unfavorable for him. But he had to obey the king's command, even though he knew it was a forced and potentially futile effort. Before leaving, Pang Tong had this dialogue with the king. What if someone came to you and said that there was a tiger in the market? Would you believe it? I wouldn't believe it. Okay, what if another person came and said, there is a tiger in the street? What would you think then? I might start to doubt. And if a third person reported, there is a tiger on the street, would you believe there's a tiger then? At that point, I might believe it. Pang Tong sighed and said, Your Majesty, a tiger cannot appear in a crowded market, as you already know. But because 3 people repeated it, you believed it. Handan is very far from our country, and getting accurate information from there is not easy since it must be passed on many times. This time as I leave, more than 3 people will spread rumors. Please remember this if you trust your servant, and do not be swayed by unfounded rumors. I won't have to worry about the future. After this conversation, Pang Tong and the crown prince set off. Before they even reached Handan, Pang Tong's political enemies began to slander him. When the crown prince returned from Handan, the king, influenced by these rumors, became suspicious and did not want to meet Pang Tong. Pang Tong could only lament that a good bird should choose its tree wisely. Both Kam Mao and Pang Tong knew the power of persuasion and had prepared for difficulties. However, unlike Kam Mao, Pang Tong eventually fell victim to other schemes, partly due to his own intelligence and understanding, which ironically contributed to his downfall. 22. Patience without outburst. The book Thuyet Van Jai Tu explains that the Chinese character for patience consists of a heart under a knife. This implies having a knife above the heart but remaining calm without reacting, which represents a special kind of strength in the strategies of the ancients. The concept of patience has a long tradition in Chinese culture. Unrestrained reactions can shake the heavens and earth, while necessary restraint can minimize danger and damage. This dual nature is a significant aspect of Chinese cultural tradition. Many foreigners have studied this Chinese characteristic of patience, with some experts even writing books about it, suggesting that such a high level of endurance among the Chinese is a product of living in extended family settings. In modern historical times, the practice of having concubines was strongly criticized. After the establishment of the People's Republic of China, the law affirmed the practice of monogamy. In ancient China, polygamy was a norm among the ruling class and the wealthy families. However, it's clear that this was not the case for the majority, who were poor and could hardly dream of having multiple wives. This perspective clearly has biases and lacks a comprehensive and deep investigation into Chinese history. The third emperor of the Tang dynasty was Emperor Gaozong. He was the 9th son of Emperor Taizong and became the crown prince after a struggle among his brothers for the throne. Emperor Gaozong, known for his mild manner and good relations with others, reigned for 35 years but spent much of it in discontent. During this time, the Empress Wu Zetian, Empress Wu, controlled the court, and due to an eye disease, Gaozong was unable to review documents for 23 years, leaving the real power to the empress. One year, Gaozong visited Mount Tai to perform rituals for heaven and earth, and during the journey, he visited the prominent Zhang family in Shandong. The Zhang family had lived together for 9 generations, which was considered extraordinary and honored by the royal family. Living harmoniously over 9 generations was seen as miraculous. Feeling troubled, Gaozong visited this great family to learn and understand some things. He admired Zhang Kongzhe and sought his secret to managing a harmonious household, especially since Gaozong himself was troubled by the women of the court, particularly under Empress Wu's dominant influence. Zhang Kongzhe did not answer Gaozong's question directly. Instead, he silently wrote the character patience over and over on a piece of paper, filling it with about 100 iterations of the word. After presenting the paper to Gaozong, the emperor felt enlightened and deeply understood many things, subsequently offering many gifts to Zhang. It is recorded that Emperor Gaozong did not achieve great things compared to his father, Emperor Taizong. However, he sought peace and stability through patience, putting aside his troubles to maintain a calm heart and a serene spirit. 23. Patience with a purpose. There are two kinds of patience, one where you just wait quietly, hoping for peace, and another where you wait with the intention of making a change. Both types were demonstrated differently by King Wu Ling of Zhao compared to Tang Dynasty's Emperor Gaozong. King Wu Ling's patience was strategic, aimed at benefiting his state's military efforts. Zhao was one of the 7 powerful states during the Warring States period, thriving under King Wu Ling's rule from 352 to 299 BC. Positioned in the Central Plains, Zhao was often dragged into wars, prompting widespread military strategies to strengthen the state. King Wu Ling, after years of warfare, appreciated the nomadic tribes' mobile cavalry tactics from the north. Traditional combat involved chariots, which formed large formations for powerful unified attacks. However, once a chariot formation was disrupted, it was difficult to reorganize, revealing a tactical weakness that became more apparent with time. Recognizing the superior mobility and adaptability of mounted combat, King Wu Ling sought to reform his military tactics to focus on cavalry. His efforts marked a transitional era in Chinese military history from chariot warfare to cavalry, a significant reform process. Initially, the traditional attire of the Central Plains was not suited for mounted warfare. Adapting required switching to the attire of the Xiongnu, which resembled modern Western trousers. However, changing to Xiongnu clothing was not simple. Such a change in ancient China was a major reform. King Wu Ling was committed to enhancing his army's capabilities, determined to adopt the Xiongnu's style of mounted warfare. He anticipated considerable opposition, mainly from conservative forces within his court who were against abandoning traditional Chinese cultural attire. Faced with opposition, King Wu Ling chose to be extremely restrained. He did not impose his will as king but used maximum patience to implement the change. He repeatedly presented his ideas, focusing on strengthening the state through military innovation. His greatest challenge was his own uncle, who used illness as an excuse to avoid court and ignore the king's advice. Knowing his uncle's real condition, King Wu Ling visited him daily, bringing doctors and medicine, always caring but never pressing the main issue. This daily gesture deeply moved his uncle, and both understood each other's intentions well. King Wu Ling's patience eventually achieved its purpose. His use of patience was strategic, aimed at the greater good of enhancing state affairs. 24. Patience in bureaucracy. Due to the immense pressures of power, those following the path of governance in traditional Chinese culture always advocated for patience. Without patience, there can be no peace. During the NGUYEN dynasty, there was an official named Truong Duong Hao, who was known for his integrity and uprightness throughout his career. In his old age, he wrote Tom Su Trung Chao, a book that candidly reflects on his life's ups and downs in the bureaucracy, causing readers to sigh with empathy. One passage particularly moves its readers. Seeing the suffering of the people, I wanted to do something to improve their lives, a concept known as relieving misery and aiding the distressed, a common desire among noble men. But while the heart is willing, sometimes the means are lacking. Even with such good intentions, what can one do if the strength isn't there? Is capability of any use without a position? And even with a position, if not valued by the king, you still can't accomplish anything. If the king values you, but you are obstructed and harmed by vile people close to him, you remain powerless. Such is the deep sorrow of a bureaucrat. In Truong Duong Hao's bureaucratic career, he experienced many situations where his will was greater than his ability, leading to such profound reflections. Indeed, having talent but not being recognized by superiors offers no opportunity to utilize that talent. Even when holding office at court, if one cannot actualize their aspirations, it is as though they hold no office at all. Truong Duong Hao had a compassionate heart, leading to such sorrowful expressions. Near the end of his life, he recounted all his unresolved grievances, leaving behind many conclusions about the spirit. If you wholeheartedly serve your superiors, but they choose not to understand you, and your colleagues lack sympathy and see you as an enemy, then the only option is to endure and seek peace. Why suffer needlessly? There was also a person named Du Dien who served as prime minister for just 70 days during the Song dynasty, whose sincere advice to his students also contained many bitter experiences. Being an official at court, you must first be upright, but more importantly, you must be cautious. Without caution, you will face many difficulties. You cannot just show off your talents, as it will provoke jealousy among your colleagues who might then harbor thoughts of revenge. They will think you are trying to surpass them. You must be prepared to endure misunderstandings and even lose your reputation. Do not expect that your superiors will see everything and know who really has talent. Often your good intentions will go unrewarded because you do not conform with others. From my experience, the best approach is to be sure, act without speaking, and be honest in your work. This is truly the best way to establish oneself. This summary, truly bitter, transcends time and space, touching our hearts even today. In reality, Du Dien had significant political achievements during his tenure as prime minister. When the northwestern barbarians invaded, he implemented various diplomatic tactics to mitigate this threat, earning merits at the time. However, because he was not deeply rooted, his political achievements led to the envy of other high officials who openly attacked his weaknesses, resulting in his short tenure as prime minister. Therefore, his sincere and bitter advice is not without cause. It truly summarizes painful experiences. Later, a younger colleague of his, appointed to a county office, came to Du Dien for guidance before taking up his position. Their unique dialogue went as follows. In court, you are respected, and you have been appointed to a county office. The main reason is that your talent is not just limited to a county office, but far exceeds it. However, when you first take office, you should hide your talents, not eagerly seek to achieve immediate benefits. If you rush for short-term gains, it will bring you many troubles, and if those around you unite against you, that is the most frightening thing. Therefore, your first basic task is to manage relationships cleverly with your colleagues. Otherwise, you will inadvertently invite disaster and regret it later. His student replied, "Master, you have never compromised with others, nor did you try to retain the prime minister position. Why do you teach me this today?" Du Dien responded, "I am old now, and having been an official in the court all my life, I cannot count all the good things and experiences I have had. I started from a very small position, gradually being recognized by the emperor and the court to reach my current status, step by step. It is because of the feelings I've had over many years in the bureaucracy that I can say these things. You are just a county official now, and your future promotion will depend on the impression your superiors have of you. If your talents always surpass your superiors, it is very dangerous for the position of the senior officials in the provinces. They will not only misunderstand you, but may also be prejudiced against you, and you could be in danger at any time without realizing it, and you will not be able to bring out your true potential. I remind you today to harmonize with those around you, adapt to the situation, and temporarily endure, truly, for your future significant actions. These sincere and profound words are indeed valuable, but the hard work involved touched his student profoundly, leaving him speechless for a long time. And speaking of Confucius, although he spent his life as a bureaucrat without achieving satisfaction when dealing with human relations, he did not carry the air of a scholar at all, very much a man of the world. He taught his students the following. When speaking with your superiors, remember these 3 points. Do not hurry, do not hide, and do not be blind. Hurrying means cutting off your superior before they have finished speaking. Hiding means not telling the truth when asked by your superior, hesitating instead. Being blind means speaking recklessly about a matter before it has been clarified. Times change, and not everyone may agree with these words today. You must be in a similar situation to truly understand and empathize with the sentiments of the ancients. For those words spoken by wise men of the past, most need to be understood as having no ill intent, to avoid falling into the same old traps and uttering similar expressions of regret.
If you like this video, please comment 1, and if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
25. The courage to put yourself forward. Many talented people, due to a lack of courage to put themselves forward, remain unrecognized despite their deep knowledge and expertise. This is truly unfortunate and lamentable. The phrase, Mao Tuwai put himself forward, is a well-known idiom from ancient China. It comes from a story that offers a lesson for future generations. During the Warring States period, Pingyuan Jun of the state of Zhao, along with other nobles, were known as the Four Lords of the Warring States. They were from prestigious families, commanding thousands of guests in their service, all striving to bring honor to their leaders. Pingyuan Jun served as the prime minister under 2 kings of Zhao, and was a key figure during the major battle of Chongping, where Zhao suffered a great defeat. The following year, when Zhao was on the brink of destruction, Pingyuan was urgently summoned by his nephew the king to seek military assistance from the state of So. After returning home, Pingyuan prepared to set out and chose 20 capable men from his guests to accompany him. When selecting the last person, a man named Mao Tuwai volunteered himself to the prime minister, despite being an unremarkable figure not known for outstanding talent. Initially hesitant, Pingyuan considered rejecting him. Their interaction was quite humorous, a frowning, displeased leader and a man puffing his chest out with confidence. "How long have you been with me?" asked Pingyuan. 3 years, Mao Tuwai replied. "A capable person is like an awl that must poke through the bag it's in. You've been under my service for 3 years and I don't even remember your name. How can I trust your ability?" Pingyuan expressed his doubts. Mao Tuwai responded cleverly, "You said the awl is in the bag, but you never put the awl in the bag. If you had, maybe its sharp end would not only pierce the bag but could also injure someone." Impressed by this quick and innovative response, Pingyuan decided to take Mao Tuwai as the 20th companion. This event is recorded in detail in the Historical Records, the biography of Pingyuan Jun, marking the beginning of documented self-nominations. Scholars of the time often came from lower social strata and lived off the patronage of nobles. Despite their exceptional talents, they needed to be recognized and given opportunities to excel. Otherwise, their abilities would be wasted. Many lived transient lives, but they worked hard to demonstrate their worth, preferring to sacrifice themselves for a cause rather than remain unnoticed. Mao Tuai later accompanied Ping Wanjun to the state of Zhou, using his skills to successfully complete the mission, earning high respect and a distinguished position among Ping Wan's guests. Asserting oneself is the foundation of the courage to put yourself forward. 26. The art of self-promotion. Being eloquent, like wearing a nice outfit, enhances your appeal when you present yourself for consideration. Xuanthan Quan was one of the 4 gentlemen of the Warring States period, and among his followers was a man named Han Ming. Han Ming also presented himself for consideration, albeit differently from Mao Tuai. One day, Han Ming said to Xuanthan Quan, "You've probably heard of the famous story of the 1,000-mile horse. This was an old horse that, pulling a cart full of salt, struggled up Taihang Mountain. Its hooves were worn, its knees trembled, its tail drooped, and it was sweating profusely as it barely made its way up the steep path, standing on the brink of death. At that moment, a renowned horse physiognomist named Ba Nak happened to pass by. Overcome with emotion, Ba Nak wept, removed his own clothing, and draped it over the horse. As the horse neared death, it suddenly raised its head towards the sky and neighed long and sorrowfully, a sound so pitiful it broke the hearts of all who heard it. Only Ba Nak could fully grasp the deep anguish of that cry, and I believe the horse felt the same way. What about my situation? While in the state of Liang, I toiled daily, living year-round in a dilapidated thatched house, encountering unimaginable hardships. Now, with your care and attention, Lord Xuan, could I perhaps have an opportunity to demonstrate my worth?" This was a compelling way of presenting himself. The saying goes, "A gentleman would die for those who appreciate him," and during the Warring States period, there were many instances where people did just that to repay their moral debts. Han Ming used this poignant example to express his feelings, also hinting at his frustration from not being fully utilized yet. This method of self-promotion differed from Mao Tuai's. It was a sophisticated technique, accomplishing multiple goals with a single action. He expressed dissatisfaction with not being understood or valued by his master, yet he did so by simply using the phrase, "A gentleman would die for those who appreciate him." His motives were similar to Mao Tuai's, with genuine, gentle words that easily resonated with others, evoking empathy. Analyzing his words in this conversation, it's clear he aimed to be of service to his master, subtly presenting himself for consideration with sincerity and humility, making it easy for others to accept him. This was truly an advanced technique of self-promotion. 27. The art of self-nomination. Self-nomination can be seen as a form of performance. Often, great performance techniques can lead to unexpected success. Not everyone has the chance to self-nominate in front of their superiors like the historical figures Mao Tuai and Han Min did. While it's possible to put oneself forward directly, a bit of luck is also necessary. In ancient China, a popular method of self-nomination involved presenting a letter written on bamboo slips. Due to the large volume of letters and the absence of paper, a single nomination letter could fill a whole cart, which might test the patience of the emperor. Such nominations needed to first catch attention with their unique content. However, the presentation was also crucial. A nomination had to stand out stylistically to capture the reader's heart. A small oversight here could mean missing an opportunity. There was a clever man named Dong Fuang Sok. With his unique thinking, he broke away from the crowd and caught the attention of Emperor Han Wudi. During the reign of Han Wudi, China was vast and prosperous. The emperor was ambitious and didn't forget to widely recruit talented individuals. Consequently, many hermits tried various ways to self-nominate. Historical records mention scholars from all directions sent numerous letters, most of them nominating themselves, numbering in the thousands. The content of these nominations often included ambitious ideas for governing the realm, leading to intense competition. Dongfang Sok, still relatively young, stood out in his approach to self-nomination. He submitted his nomination on over 3,000 bamboo slips, which required 2 people to transport. His unique style indeed sparked the curiosity of the emperor. Due to this curiosity, the emperor took 2 months to read through his submission. Captivating the emperor for such a long period wasn't merely due to the large number of bamboo slips, but because of the engaging and easy-to-read content. What was in the letter? The records state, Sok, from a young age, was raised by his brother and sister-in-law. By age 12, he had 3 years of reading history and literature. At 15, he learned fencing. At 16, calligraphy, and knew tens of thousands of characters by heart. By 19, he had mastered military tactics. Sok, now 22, was tall and handsome, with a demeanor fitting for an emperor. This flattering portrayal surely amused the emperor, particularly the line, "has the demeanor fitting for an emperor," which made him laugh out loud. Emperors in times of peace and prosperity were often more generous. If it had been a tumultuous time, such a statement might have been dangerous. The emperor appreciated the humor in the young scholar's self-mockery. After spending 2 months reading the letter, the emperor concluded that this person is very witty, leading to an audience and a promotion for Sok. Ultimately, Dongfang Sok's unique approach to self-nomination was successful. He often accompanied the emperor, amusing him with witty remarks. Historical records note that he was essentially a court jester, but he also left some literary works that were not highly regarded. 28. The courage of self-nomination. With belief in oneself and true ability, it's about seizing the opportunity to self-nominate and bravely doing so. Over 120 years ago, before the era of Dongfang Sok, during the end of the Warring States period, King Zhao of Qin widely implemented the foreign policy of distant diplomacy and close conquest. This approach showcased its advantages and laid a solid foundation for Qin Shi Huang to eventually unify the 6 states. At that time, the political power in Qin was actively manipulated by a successfully self-nominated individual, Fan Zhu. Fan Zhu initially relied on the King of Wei and spent a considerable time there as a guest, but he was not satisfied and was even mistakenly driven out as a spy. After enduring repeated humiliations, he had to hide for a while. Fortunately, Wang Ke discovered Fan Zhu by chance and invited him to try his luck in Qin. At that time, Lord Yang was in power in Qin, and he was intolerant of traveling scholars from other places. Lord Yang believed these individuals only caused chaos without benefiting Qin. It's worth noting that Fan Zhu was not lucky at first. Despite Wang Ke's repeated recommendations, King Zhao initially had no intention of meeting Fan Zhu. Fan Zhu had to wait in a low-grade inn for a year, feeling very distressed. He understood there was an invisible barrier between him and the King of Qin, and he pondered how to break it down. After much thought, Fan Zhu decided to send a letter to the King of Qin. Unlike most others who flaunted their abilities, Fan Zhu knew this was just a common tactic and unlikely to move the king's heart or break that barrier. In his letter, he subtly suggested, "If the king listens to my advice, I have a way to resolve your worries." This approach caught the King of Qin's attention, as verified in the historical records. His letter was straightforward without any fancy strategies, simply using subtle expressions to draw attention. Of course, the King of Qin had his own frustrations and limitations. At that time, King Zhao of Qin was 25 years old. Although in his prime, real power was not in his hands but in those of his mother, the Empress Dowager, and his uncle, Lord Yang. His uncle, holding a high position, disregarded King Zhao, and Lord Yang's authoritarian rule deeply hurt him. Fan Zhu, after thoroughly understanding this political reality, subtly expressed his thoughts as mentioned above. King Zhao certainly understood and agreed to meet him to assess his ideas. Fan Zhu's first goal was achieved. He finally broke through that barrier. On the day of the audience, King Zhao wanted Fan Zhu to wait outside the palace. After careful consideration, Fan Zhu boldly decided to directly enter the inner garden of the deep palace. When the eunuch saw him, he quickly stopped him. "You cannot go further. The king has ordered it." Fan Zhu pretended to be startled but loudly laughed, saying, "Qin does not have a king, only Lord Yang and the Empress Dowager." King Zhao, overhearing this from afar, felt his hidden pain touched. He thought this man was bold, daring to speak so freely and risking his life. Fan Zhu, after a year of waiting, also knew this might be his only chance and deliberately spoke disrespectfully to catch King Zhao's attention. King Zhao reconsidered his thoughts, realizing this man came prepared and might not be trivial. He decided to meet him. "I have wanted to meet you sooner to hear your wise words. Due to recent overwhelming state affairs, only today have I had the time to listen to your advice. I am a simple man, so speak freely and without reservation." Fan Zhu's second objective was also achieved. From drawing King Zhao's attention to encouraging him to let him continue speaking, each step required much thought. Indeed, this reflects his intelligence and courage. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 29. Silence is golden. Silence is a form of skill and intelligence. It represents depth, discipline, and contemplation. Its significance is profound, as in, some moments silence speaks louder than words. Pham Tui was not an ordinary speaker. He knew how to capture the attention of King Qin and was just getting started with his address. The key to his success on this mission was how he approached the heart of the matter. "Does the gentleman have any advice to offer?" King Zhao urged again. Pham Tui simply responded, "Yes, yes." This response made everyone around tense. Seeing this, King Zhao sensed that Pham Tui had something special to say just to him and asked everyone else to leave. Once again, he asked, "Does the gentleman have any guidance to offer?" Pham Tui continued with his simple "yes, yes," without elaborating further. King Zhao grew anxious and asked a third time, only to hear "yes, yes" again. This episode is well documented in historical records. The Chinese proverb goes, "Eloquent speech is silver, but silence is golden." Pham Tui's silence, especially after his provocative statement that Qin has no king, was strategic. Such a tactic of silence to provoke thought must be used carefully and at the right moment, or it can backfire. Pham Tui's arrangement was calm and meticulous, a stark contrast to his previous unrestrained demeanor. His silence convinced King Zhao that he was no ordinary man, and that after careful thought, he would have something valuable to say. However, Pham Tui's brilliance lay in the fact that, in the subsequent story, he didn't say anything astonishing from start to finish. After a long silence, Pham Tui finally broke the suspense, and with his skill, he gradually steered the conversation into a phase that was very reasonable for King Zhao. But the content remained focused on diplomacy and warfare. Regarding domestic politics, he only hinted at a few things and didn't delve deeply, maintaining a profound aura. King Zhao, sensing by intuition that this man could achieve great things, did not probe too deeply and invited him to be the chief military advisor, seeking his counsel day and night. Over the next 5 years, Pham Tui helped King Zhao through practical actions, implementing the subtle hints from his letters, expelling the Duke of Nuong, and seizing great power. Eventually, Pham Tui became the most trusted advisor of King Zhao, but the secret understanding between them, formed at their first meeting, was kept hidden for 5 years. Both were strategists at heart, and Pham Tui was appointed as the Prime Minister of Qin. 30. Faith in hard times. To become highly skilled, one must have determination and strong faith. Sun Yat-sen himself once said, "My goal is to eagerly move forward. Nothing can shake me, and obstacles only make me stronger." The examples mentioned are of successful people. In truth, on their paths to success, countless hardships have shaped them. Take, for instance, the famous debaters from the Warring States period Su Qin and Zhang Yi. Before they found success, both experienced a tough, wandering life. Such was the case for many debaters at that time. For most of their lives they wandered, but when opportunities arose, with just a few words, they could promote themselves to significant positions, even changing history. Su Qin and Zhang Yi also went through numerous failures everywhere they went, like seeds unable to sprout, living in extreme difficulty. In tough times, what stood out was their shared quality of firm belief. They deeply believed in their talents, knowing that success depended on many factors. They also reflected and disciplined themselves, trusting that their chance to shine on the political stage of major countries would eventually come. Let's first look at what Su Qin went through. Before visiting various states, Su Qin learned the art of persuasion from Gui Guzi, but after several years of unsuccessful attempts, he returned home disappointed. Upon his return, Su Qin was in a dire state, ragged and gaunt and mocked by his family. Ordinary people accepted their fate. Though not talented, they could maintain a living through hard farming. But Su Qin wouldn't settle. He traveled everywhere, making speeches, which looked quite pitiful. Su Qin was humiliated by his family, which of course was very distressing. He knew that the life of a traveling debater was insecure. Many aspired to high positions like being a great minister, but few succeeded. Most had beautiful dreams in youth that faded to nothing in old age, living a life of disillusionment. Su Qin perhaps understood and felt this more deeply than others. Was he truly useless? He agonized over this doubt. He spent days secluded in his room, suffering as he thought and read books he had at home. When he read a particular passage in an ancient text, he found a significant insight. After more than a year of dedicated study, he developed his own expertise in art of deduction. Ultimately, art of deduction, not detailed in ancient texts and best described in modern terms, might be considered a form of psychology. Using psychological methods to guess the thoughts of kings and prescribe solutions accordingly was his main goal. History records that those hard days of reading and self-reflection in his hometown were a turning point leading to his later success. The key condition was having firm belief. This aligns well with Mencius's saying, "Heaven will impose great responsibilities on those it wishes to make great." As for Zhang Yi, his story is even more remarkable. Like Su Qin, Zhang Yi was also a student of Gui Guzi and learned the full skill of persuasion. After several setbacks, he barely managed to become an advisor in the state of Zhao, temporarily securing a place to live. However, fate continued to play tricks on him. Once, when a jade piece of the prime minister was stolen, Zhang Yi was suspected and suffered much humiliation. Returning to his hometown in the state of Wei, his wife scolded him. "You shouldn't study the art of persuasion anymore. Look where it has gotten you. Wouldn't it be better to stop?" Zhang Yi didn't respond directly but simply opened his mouth for his wife to see. "Look, is my tongue still there?" "It is." "Then it's all right." Zhang Yi, patting his chest, indicated that as long as he had his tongue, he could still try. As Su Qin did earlier with his art of deduction, Zhang Yi, although a bit boastful in the end, believed that as long as he had his skills, he could continue. Eventually, both of them successfully promoted themselves and changed history in their own ways. But before making history, they each endured hardships and honed themselves. 31. War does not forbid deception. Ethically speaking, lying is generally despised. However, when used as a strategy in diplomatic negotiations, it cannot be overly criticized. A wise person once said, "Truth is a precious commodity. We must use it sparingly." Here is a classic example of strategic deception. One year, Eastern Zhou wanted to plant rice, but Western Zhou upstream cut off their water supply. Despite sharing common ancestors during the warring states period, both states couldn't protect themselves and instead hindered each other. Facing severe agricultural challenges, Eastern Zhou was deeply troubled. At this time, the brother of the famous strategist Su Qin, Su Dai, stepped in to help. His method involved a clever deception. He went to Western Zhou and fabricated a story. "I've just come from Eastern Zhou. Everyone there is secretly pleased that the king has cut off the water because this year they planted barley instead of rice. Cutting off the water suits them well. If the king now releases the water, their barley fields will be ruined. By waiting until they switch back to rice and then cutting off the water again, the king can control their fate." Believing this story, the king of Western Zhou released the dam, allowing the water to flow. Su Dai was rewarded by both sides. However, once the truth was uncovered, the king of Western Zhou was furious with Su Dai, who had already fled and could not be punished. This story is recorded in the Strategies of the Warring States. Su Dai was clever, but such deceptive tactics can only be used once. Throughout different eras, kings had varying opinions about such strategists. For instance, King Yan rebuked Su Qin, saying, "You are all deceivers." To which Su Qin replied, "That is because you need deceivers." King Yan also expressed, "I do not want to deal with liars." To which Su Qin explained, "Your Majesty, in my hometown there is a profession called matchmaker, who at the groom's house might say, 'The bride is very beautiful,' and at the bride's house, 'The groom is very talented.'" Although the families might not fully believe him, this profession persists because, without matchmakers, many women might never marry. Thus, families rely on them to facilitate good marriages. Despite knowing the matchmaker might embellish the truth, his role is essential. Similarly, Your Majesty, even if you dislike such strategists, can you deny their contribution to the state's achievements? The ethical stance of the Su brothers was that society needs deceivers for its functioning. Such strategists believe in achieving their goals by any means necessary, even if it involves turning falsehoods into truths. They are from the lower strata of society, struggling for survival and success, and will use any opportunity to showcase their abilities. Deception is a key tool in their arsenal. Historically, opinions have varied on such individuals and their actions, Some vehemently argue that they are harmless, merely corrupting society's morals. Figures like the Sue brothers, however, justify their survival tactics.
If you like this video, please comment 1, and if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
32. The lies of the weak. In the presence of someone stronger, the weaker party often starts at a disadvantage, unsupported and uncertain of what to do except resort to lying, which is often accepted and understood by the other party. As mentioned in a previous article, deceit, especially by a matchmaker, should be limited and avoided if possible. However, well-intentioned deceit is sometimes acceptable. If the deceit stems from good intentions, it's just a tactic. So is it necessary to eliminate it entirely? For instance, if you make up an excuse to avoid a gathering you don't want to attend, the excuse isn't the real reason. In such cases, no one can reasonably demand too much strictness in this matter. You likely feel no remorse since your intention isn't to harm but to protect and preserve what you wish to keep safe. Even if others realize it's an excuse, they might still see the commonality in such art of deceit. Therefore, the term art of deceit is used neutrally in this article, neither inherently good nor bad. Let's return to the main subject of this book, the wisdom of ancient China, within the realm of deceit. Distinguishing between the deceit of the weak and the strong offers more forgiveness and understanding for the third party toward the deceit of the weak. As the matchmakers mentioned in the previous article and persuaders in their professions often lie out of necessity, they are executing an art of deceit. Han Fei, a prime minister during the Warring States period of Han, was a powerful but disliked figure both inside and outside the court. Nian Zhu, who dared to criticize Han Fei's overbearing style, offended him deeply, leading Han Fei to seek revenge. Once, this narrow-minded prime minister publicly insulted Nian Zhu, who became so angry that he plotted to assassinate Han Fei. The plan failed, and after it was discovered, Nian Zhu had to flee. Another conspirator, Yang Jian, wasn't caught but was so worried about potential disaster that he fled abroad to Western Chu, where he was welcomed and supported, fearing retaliation from Han. At that time, a persuader passing through Western Chu heard about the king's worries and offered his help. He suggested, "Your Majesty need not worry. If Han inquires, you can explain that upon suspecting Yang Jian when he passed through, you detained him temporarily for clarification from Han. Later, assuming holding him was a mistake, Yang Jian was allowed to continue on his way." This persuader, a clever businessman whose name is not recorded and whose background is unknown, gave Western Chu a good cover story, initially saving Han's face. Arguing for someone else is a challenging task. Most who do so must position themselves as the weak and often slightly lie, presenting a well-intentioned stance and hoping for forgiveness and understanding from an objective third party. Similarly, in advocacy, one doesn't need to overthink. A firm belief and clear stance can already be considered a wise decision. Tuan Vucon's experience as an envoy from the state of Qi to the state of So illustrates this point. He was tasked with delivering a hawk, a non-valuable symbol of good fortune, to So. Doubting the wisdom of this mission during the long journey, he released the hawk and traveled with an empty cage. Upon arrival, he fabricated a story of losing the hawk accidentally and considered suicide, but decided against it to avoid tarnishing his king's image. So's king, moved by the story, rewarded Tuan Vucon generously. While Tuan Vucon violated the king's order, he fulfilled its purpose, demonstrating goodwill, not with a hawk, but with a well-crafted story, ultimately achieving more than the initial task intended. His deceit was simply a clever maneuver, nothing more. 33. How temptation can fool even the wise. Strong individuals understand that everyone has weaknesses that can be exploited by tempting offers. Therefore, they might use small benefits to lure others, achieving their goals even without much effort. Those who are weaker must defend themselves and often resort to deception. It's generally understood, but what happens when the powerful use deceit against the weak? People's moral views might differ. There's a story from the ancient Chinese state of Qin about Zhang Yi, a chancellor who effectively implemented the vertical alliance policy to strengthen Qin. However, the situation was complex with other states like Han, Zhao, and Wei opposing Qin, while the large eastern state of Qi and the southern state of Chu formed an alliance, making Qin cautious in its actions. Zhang Yi aimed to disrupt this alliance. Zhang Yi, known for his strategic thinking, decided to break the Qi-Chu alliance. He traveled to Chu, where the naive King Huai of Chu valued his visit. King Huai, overly simplistic and gullible, was impressed by Zhang Yi's presence and his flattering words. Zhang Yi discussed the grand vision of unifying the lands and suggested that if Chu could sever ties with Qi, Qin would grant Chu 600 miles of territory from Shangyu. King Huai, blinded by the immediate benefits, ignored the wise counsel from his advisors like Ku Yuan and Tran Chan, who had first-hand experience with Zhang Yi's deceitful strategies. They tried to warn the king about the trap, suggesting that accepting the land might be a ploy to isolate Chu and make it vulnerable. Tran Chan advised the king to tentatively agree to Zhang Yi's terms, but to keep a watchful eye on his actions. If Chu declared a break with Qi too soon, they would be isolated, and Qin might not fulfill its promise. Despite the advice, King Huai, swayed by the short-term gain, agreed to Zhang Yi's conditions, leading to a temporary peace after considerable losses due to a failed alliance with Qin, illustrating the 600 miles of Shangyu tale. Zhang Yi's tactics were successful, highlighting the deceit of the strong against the weak, which has often been criticized by historians for lacking moral integrity. 34. Lies are a double-edged sword. Using lies habitually or excessively is unethical and unwise. It hurts others and eventually harms the person telling them. Essentially, lying is a double-edged sword. While it may achieve short-term goals, there is always a price to pay. The more harm the lies cause to others, the greater the risk to the liar's own well-being. For example, in the ancient story from the state of Chu during the 600 miles of Shangyu period, the initial success brought about by deceit eventually led to a tarnish on the individual's honor and reputation. Following this, a similar case occurred with Cam Mao, a minister in the state of Qin, who used lies to save his position but ended up facing personal consequences. During his reign, a man named Gongtong Dian from the state of Wei, who was a former minister there, sought refuge in Qin. At the time, King Wu of Qin, reigning from 317 to 310 BCC, valued Gongtong Dian's talents greatly. After a conversation where King Wu hinted at possibly appointing Gongtong Dian as his minister, Cam Mao, who overheard this, felt threatened. Cam Mao used deceit in front of King Wu by falsely claiming that Gongtong Dian was boasting about being appointed as minister. This lie led to Gongtong Dian's unexpected and swift removal from Qin. Cam Mao used the lie as a weapon to secure his position by eliminating his rival, but as the saying goes, lies will eventually be exposed. In the end, Cam Mao paid a heavy price for his actions. Therefore, lying truly is a double-edged sword. Lies, especially in diplomacy, are used strategically. A famous British diplomat once said, A diplomat is an honest person sent abroad to lie for their country. This shows that even in diplomacy, lying is often expected as part of the job. You may not agree and you might strive to be honest, but it's undeniable that in today's society, lies are still commonly used or abused in many areas. Even if you choose not to lie, it's important to be able to detect lies. Understanding the techniques and psychological aspects of lying can help protect you from being deceived and harmed. To avoid lying and recognize lies in others, one must develop strong judgment and observational skills. 35. Treating soldiers like children. This is the most emotionally engaging method to win people's hearts and is also highly effective. General NGUYEN from the early Warring States period was not only braver than most but also a renowned military and political leader. His ability to win people's loyalty is still recognized as exceptional today. When NGUYEN served as a general in the state of Wei, he dressed and lived just like his soldiers. He didn't use cotton blankets or straw mats for sleeping, nor did he travel by carriage. Instead, he carried his own provisions, setting a powerful example. Once, a soldier in his army suffered from a painfully infected boil. NGUYEN saw this and personally sucked the pus and blood from the wound, then carefully bandaged it with a piece of his own robe. Everyone present was deeply moved by his act of kindness. When the soldier returned home and told his mother about this, she cried loudly, not from the pain her son endured, nor purely from gratitude towards the general. The previous year, NGUYEN had done the same for her husband, who later fought bravely in war to repay the general's kindness and died in battle. Now she feared her son would meet the same fate. Her tears and experience reflected a deep understanding of how such personal devotion could lead others to sacrifice their lives, giving a foreboding sense about her son's future. General NGUYEN's legacy is filled with such stories, illustrating that during ancient times, especially in war, winning soldiers' loyalty and obedience was crucial to military success. Unfortunately, NGUYEN's later years were troubled. He was betrayed in Wei and sought refuge in the state of Chu. 36. Make an example of 1 to warn 100. Winning people's hearts is also about controlling them, so it's essential to balance leniency and strictness, kindness, and authority. Among ancient Chinese military leaders, Sun Tzu is the most renowned. His art of war is still widely studied by scholars today, and its teachings are increasingly admired, inspiring numerous new studies and becoming a major field of academic inquiry. Sun Tzu, also known as Sun Wu from the state of Wu during the late spring and autumn period, or Sun Bin from the state of Qi during the Warring States period, is credited with these writings. In 1972, many bamboo slips about Sun Tzu were discovered at a Han Dynasty tomb site in Shandong Province. These findings confirmed the existence of both Sun Tzu's Art of War and Sun Bin's Art of War. In the Art of War, regarding how to win people's loyalty, it is written, "When punishing subordinates, one must pay appropriate attention. For minor errors, they should not be punished too harshly, as this will not win their genuine respect. If subordinates do not respect their superiors, they are difficult to manage. On the other hand, if a serious error is overlooked, it will foster a lackadaisical attitude that can become unmanageable in the future." This insight from Sun Tzu, over 2,000 years ago, still resonates today, whether in government agencies or business management. Sun Tzu also said, "Leaders should be gentle to their subordinates, build trust through regular interactions, and strictly enforce military discipline. These two aspects must be applied simultaneously to effectively implement laws during war and ensure orders are followed to the letter." An example of Sun Tzu's approach can be seen in an interaction with the king of Wu, who asked Sun Tzu to demonstrate his military strategies using his 13 chapters on warfare. Sun Tzu agreed and proposed using the court ladies who were inexperienced in battle to form ranks and simulate battle formations for the king, which pleased him greatly. 280 beauties from the palace were divided into 2 groups, each led by one of the king's favorite concubines. Sun Tzu instructed them, "Today is not a game but real military training. I hope everyone will follow my orders. If I say front, you look forward. If I say left, you look left. If I say right, you look right. If I say behind, you turn and look behind." Despite Sun Tzu's clear instructions, the initial drill was chaotic as the ladies, accustomed only to dressing up, burst into laughter, turning the exercise into a disarray. Sun Tzu repeated his instructions, blaming himself for any unclear commands. However, when the disobedience continued, especially from the team leaders who were favored by the king, Sun Tzu ordered their execution for failing to follow military discipline. This shocked everyone, including the king, who regretted the situation but came to understand the importance of strict enforcement of commands. Sun Tzu then appointed new leaders, and with renewed seriousness, the troops followed every command, successfully demonstrating the drill to the king. Despite the harsh action, Sun Tzu's method reflects his deep understanding of controlling people's hearts, a principle he applied even in his gentler dealings with his troops later in life. His approach starkly contrasts with another leader, Dukin Go, who sucked poison from his soldiers' wounds to win their hearts. This shows that winning people's loyalty can involve drastically different actions. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 37. Failure begins when the soldier's heart is broken. Among the 3 factors of right timing, strategic location, and human harmony is crucial. During the Warring States period, about 100 years after the Ngokoi era, the state of Zhao had a famous general named Zhao Sha. He was renowned for his victory in the Battle of Yandu, where he defeated the Qin army, making a name for himself. Zhao Quat, the son of Zhao Sha, was a bright child from an early age, well-versed in military strategies and knowledgeable in many areas. Being a general's son, he often received undue praise from others, which gradually made him arrogant, believing himself to be the most talented. Zhao Sha and his son frequently discussed military strategies, and although Zhao Sha was pleased with his son's knowledge, he also recognized his fatal flaw. He once confided in his wife about their son's future. "He has read a lot and understands military strategies, but it's all theoretical. With his arrogant nature, I fear he might eventually harm our nation's interests." A father knows his son best, and unfortunately, Zhao Sha's worries proved correct. A few years after Zhao Sha's death, the Qin army invaded again. The commanding general at the time was Lian Fa, a highly experienced leader. The Qin could not defeat him for a long time, so they resorted to deception, spreading rumors within the Zhao court that Lian Fa was too old and ineffective compared to Zhao Quat. Zhao Wang, the foolish king, believed these lies and replaced Lian Fa with Zhao Quat as the supreme military commander. Before Zhao Quat took command, his mother sent a letter to Zhao Wang, pleading on her deceased husband's behalf to prevent this appointment. Zhao Wang asked why, and she replied, "I speak from the experience of being Zhao Sha's wife. He was careful and humble throughout his life, unlike our son, who only flaunts his power." Zhao Xia shared his rewards with his subordinates and focused solely on developing strategies for battle. Our son, on the other hand, squanders everything on lavish displays of wealth. I fear he lacks his father's wisdom and recommend that you reconsider his appointment for the sake of our country. Zhao Wang, lacking insight in personnel matters, ignored this advice and maintained his decision. Consequently, in the Battle of Chongping, Zhao Quat was disastrously defeated by the Qin, causing severe damage to Zhao's vital spirit and its historical standing. Zhao Quat's defeat was mainly due to his lack of practical experience and his inability to win the hearts of his soldiers. When the situation became critical, he had no loyal followers, leaving him unable to manage the crisis. History records his defeat as stemming from the soldier's heart being broken. Both Ngo Koi and Zhao Xia understood that while military tactics are important, winning the soldiers' hearts is essential for victory. Especially in an army, gaining this support is crucial to success or failure in battle. 38. Hospitality, seeking fame, ends in rejection. It's hard to attract talented people, but even harder to win their loyalty. Gaining people's trust is essential, not just for military generals and combat groups, but also in modern administrative offices and businesses. Managers everywhere fear not having supportive subordinates, as good leadership qualities are crucial. Meng Chang, a prime minister in the state of Qi, managed thousands of retainers. His private estates were a gathering place for useful talents, preparing for various unexpected situations. His success largely came from using his wealth to support these people. While material support is necessary, it alone is not enough. Meng Chang excelled in winning people over. For example, when new guests visited, someone would always be there to record the conversation, and Meng knew detailed family backgrounds of his guests. If a guest decided to leave his trap, Meng would send gifts to their family members as a gesture of thanks, something beyond what ordinary people would do. Once, Meng and a guest were dining together when a servant accidentally blocked the light, making it hard for the guest to see the food, leading him to believe that Meng's food was different and throwing his chopsticks down in protest. Quickly, Meng moved his own food to the guest's table to prove they were eating the same meal. The guest, embarrassed by his mistake, tragically took his own life. Meng, deeply saddened, mourned over his body, unsure of his own thoughts. This event further enhanced Meng's reputation. As mentioned, Meng Chang was meticulous and clever in handling his guests, making each one feel uniquely valued and deeply respected. Despite his efforts, when Meng was removed from his position, he faced an unexpected betrayal. Thousands of his guests abandoned him. Meng was confused and expressed his disappointment to his loyal guest Feng Xuan, saying, "I was overly hospitable and treated my guests well, so I had thousands of people with me. You saw, after I lost my position, how they all left me, so unfaithful. Thankfully, with your help, I've regained my position. I trust none who left will dare return, and if they do, I will not forgive them. I want to spit in their faces." Feng Xuan, a much cleverer man, stayed silent beside Meng, understanding another side of his character. What was it? As the historical records briefly but accurately put it, there is a legend that Meng Chang's hospitality was his pride. His superficial nature showed that his hospitality was a tactic to flaunt his status, not a genuine desire to select capable people to help the world, eventually leading everyone to see the truth. Gathering talent is difficult. Winning hearts is even more challenging. 39. Justice and Reputation, the Tale of Bin Nguyen Quan. It's not easy to please everyone, but trying to do so comes at a cost. In the story of BINH NGUYEN from the state of Trieu, introduced through Mao Tuai's self-nomination, he is one of the 4 great patrons comparable to Monthuong Quan. Known for his generosity and disdain for wealth, he hosted 3,000 guests without any selfish calculations, yet faced failures. Among BINH NGUYEN's guests was a man who had a limp, making his movements awkward. One day this man was fetching water from a well and struggled due to his condition. An informal wife of BINH NGUYEN saw this and laughed out loud, causing the man to feel humiliated. The man sought justice from BINH NGUYEN. "I've always thought of you as a noble who loves talented individuals. Many skilled men from far away come to rely on you, believing you value talent over beauty. Yet your wife mocked me. I demand her head as justice." BINH NGUYEN responded, "I understand, and I will restore justice for you." After the guests left, BINH NGUYEN laughed aloud. "What a tasteless man! He himself is a figure of ridicule. For such a trivial matter, he wants the head of my concubine. How absurd!" Gradually, his guests started leaving, and within a year, only half remained. BINH NGUYEN didn't understand why, as he treated his guests well materially, and wondered why people were drifting away. A confidant explained to him, "The incident with the man being mocked hurt everyone's feelings. They think you value beauty over talent, and that's why they left." Suddenly, realizing his mistake, BINH NGUYEN executed the woman and brought her head to the man as an apology. This act restored his reputation, and more people started coming to him again. This story deeply resonates with people. Back then, patrons deposited their futures with reputable individuals, seeking not only material assurance but also respect for talent, which was the basic criterion for choosing a patron. Guests traveled based on rumors to find such reputable individuals. If the reality didn't match the rumors, they would leave in search of a better patron. Therefore, to truly earn the loyalty of guests, one must act with integrity and not just speak well. Both BINH NGUYEN and Monthuong lacked in this area, failing to fully satisfy everyone. 40. The artist dies for a kindred spirit. Everyone has a need to be understood and acknowledged by others. If you can satisfy this need, you will receive great gratitude. "There are those who would die for a kindred spirit" is a famous saying from ancient Chinese history. The secret to success is just that. Anyone who can make an artist feel like a kindred spirit has reached a high level in winning people's hearts. In the late spring and autumn period of the Qin state, there was a warrior named Yu Nong. He had relied on several lords before, none of whom valued him until he came under the care of the Triba family. They cherished and respected him like a kindred spirit, sharing meals and living like brothers. Yu Nong was deeply moved. Later, when the Triba fought with Zhao Xiangzi to expand their influence, they were defeated due to Zhao's superior strength, leading to their downfall and forcing them to wander. At that time, Yu Nong was training in the mountains. Hearing of this, he vowed to avenge the Triba family, saying, "The artist dies for the kindred spirit. A woman beautifies herself for one who admires her. I must avenge the Triba." Yu Nong then plotted to assassinate Zhao Xiangzi. However, his plans were not discreet, and Zhao captured him. Moved by Yu Nong's loyalty, Zhao did not kill him immediately but asked, "Previously, you had served the Palm and Trung Han families, both of whom were destroyed by Triba. Why didn't you risk your life to avenge them? Now that I have defeated Triba, why do you want to avenge him?" Yu Nong replied, "I served the Pham and Trung Han families as a common man, and they treated me as such, which was fair. but Ba treated me like a national scholar despite my ordinary skills, so I must avenge him as a national scholar would." Zhao Xiangzi, after hearing this, sighed deeply and asked if Yunong had any last requests. Yunong said, "My plans were not discreet, and today I am at your mercy, which is fate. I do not ask you to release me, for if I live, my only mission would still be to assassinate you." Zhao remained silent. Yunong asked to borrow Zhao's robe for a moment. Surprised, Zhao still took off his robe and handed it to him. Yunong drew his sword and stabbed the robe several times, shouting, "I have avenged Ba." After speaking, he committed suicide with his sword. This famous story reflects Yunong's loyalty to his lord. In ancient China, matters were often this straightforward, but the moral principles are deeply embedded in such stories, seeking acknowledgement from others. In today's society, there are those who willingly serve their superiors if their abilities are acknowledged. Otherwise, they might pursue other ambitions. The example of Yunong is an extreme one, but it shows his desire to be recognized for his loyalty to his lord. Ancient texts record Yunong's sacrifice for Ba, and even in Han Feizi, it is commented that excessive desires lead to loss and death. Ba was a man of great ambition, struggling against other noble families to expand his power. Therefore, some later lamented Yunong's sacrifice for such a person, considering it unworthy.
If you like this video, please comment 1, and if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
41. Repaying grudges with virtue. Repaying grudges with virtue is a noble act indeed. It's also a form of wisdom. It's no wonder the ancients said, "Suffering a loss is a blessing." During the Warring States period, the culture of valuing reputation in interpersonal relationships emerged. This was evident when studying the society of chivalrous knights, who were adept at winning people's hearts, unlike those who relied on authoritarianism and violence in the feudal dynasties. Particularly, these chivalrous knights held reputation in high regard. During the time of Emperor Wu of Han, there was a great hero named Guoji. In his youth, he was impulsive and rash, but more heroic and righteous than others. As he grew older and more experienced, he became more mature and cautious, especially in personal development. People who admired reputation gradually became his followers. Influential people from various fields showed their respect for him, voluntarily helping him solve difficult problems. He earned everyone's respect because of his principles. Guoji was highly respected. When he walked down the street, people would make way for him out of respect. Once, a stranger who clearly saw Guoji coming his way deliberately lay in the middle of the road, stretching out his legs, wanting Guoji to step over him. Guoji, understandably upset, stopped and asked his companion for the man's name. His companion thought Guoji was angry and wanted to harm the man, drawing a knife to act on it. Guoji quickly intervened, saying, "Being disrespected surely has a reason. It might also be my fault. We shouldn't just offend this person. Let's just leave." Later, Guoji thought of a way. He went to the village leader with a request. "In future military drafts, please remove his name. This is very important to me. I hope you can help." As a result, the man was exempted from several drafts and he was puzzled. After inquiring from the village leader and not getting an answer, when his turn came again and he was exempted, he carefully asked the village leader to explain. The village leader reluctantly revealed the truth about Guoji's request and his favor. The man was deeply moved by this unexpected kindness. This deed eventually became widely known, and knights of the realm held Guoji in even greater respect. There was an occasion when a man in Luoyang, troubled by a feud with another, sought the intervention of reputable individuals in the area, but to no avail. He then turned to Guoji's followers, inviting them to mediate the dispute. Guoji accepted the request and personally visited the home of the adversary, persuading him to agree to a reconciliation after much difficulty. By conventional standards, Guoji had fulfilled his duty and could have ended matters there, maintaining his dignity. However, Guoji had a higher strategy, handling the situation with great skill. After everything was clear, he said to the man, "There have been several reputable individuals who tried to mediate but couldn't discuss successfully. I was fortunate this time you maintained my dignity, allowing me to conclude this matter. While I thank you, I'm also concerned that, as an outsider, if local figures couldn't resolve it but I did, it might embarrass the local dignitaries." Guoji added, "Let's do it this way. I ask for your help once more. Outwardly let people think I couldn't resolve the issue. After I leave tomorrow, local heroes will visit your home. You maintain their dignity, letting them complete this noble act." This event greatly enhanced Guoji's reputation. According to the historical records, the two actions performed by Guoji, as described above, are known as repaying grudges with virtue. Without boasting about himself, the outcomes he achieved were twice as impactful, truly a masterful skill. 42. Giving credit to subordinates. Ordinary leaders often hog credit and pass off their mistakes, but wise leaders do the opposite. HONGZHANG was a deputy prime minister under Emperor Wu of Han. He started as a local official and was gradually promoted because of his clear thinking and methodical approach to work. In interpersonal relationships, he was more adept than most. He was natural and respectful towards loyal courtiers, and even with those who disliked him, he never let it show in his words. What was even more insightful was his knack for giving credit to his subordinates to win their loyalty. For instance, there was a case that should have been approved by the emperor himself, but HONGZHANG took it upon himself to handle it. When the emperor called him to reprimand him, HONGZHANG naturally accepted the blame and agreed to redo it according to the emperor's wishes. Normally, that would have been the end of it, but HONGZHANG saw an opportunity even in his mistake. After admitting his fault, he invented a story about a very capable subordinate who had advised him to get the emperor's approval first, but he had ignored the advice, leading to the mistake. Amazingly, even though he was at fault, he found a way to praise a loyal follower in front of the emperor. On the other hand, when discussing a case that had been praised by the emperor, he again fabricated a story. This case was not handled by me alone, but by another person from start to finish. His ideas were very mature, and I simply compiled them and presented them to your majesty for consideration. Right or wrong, HONGZHANG consistently created opportunities for his subordinates. His skills in this regard were exquisite. While HONGZHANG's actions were deceptive and should not be wholly emulated, as a leader, giving subordinates plenty of opportunities to demonstrate and develop their creative talents is undoubtedly beneficial. Furthermore, even if you know a task could be done better by yourself, letting a subordinate handle it and then discreetly helping them improve afterward can be a valuable leadership strategy. 43. Why Liu Bang defeated Xiang Yu. It's said that those who win people's hearts will win the world, and those who lose people's support will lose it all. This has always been true. After the death of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China, people rebelled against the harsh rule of the Qin dynasty. This led to a chaotic period, eventually resulting in a power struggle between Liu Bang and Xiang Yu during the Chu-Han contention. Initially, Xiang Yu was stronger and often defeated Liu Bang, forcing him to flee and hide. However, over a year or two, Liu Bang regained strength, and after 4 years of fierce fighting, he finally cornered Xiang Yu at the Battle of Gaixia, leading to Xiang Yu's suicide and Liu Bang establishing the Western Han dynasty. This period, though short, is filled with dramatic tales. A key question to consider is how Liu Bang turned from weak to strong and how Xiang Yu went from powerful to defeated. The main reason boils down to how they manage people's support. Before the final outcomes were clear, Xiang Yu had already lost to Liu Bang in this crucial aspect. Once Liu Bang declared himself emperor, he analyzed the situation objectively. I won the empire with the help of Zhang Liang, Xiao He, and Han Xin. They were more capable than me, but it was my ability to fully utilize their talents that defeated Xiang Yu. Xiang Yu, despite having the strategist Fan Zeng, was stubborn and narrow-minded, believing only in his own correctness, and failed to make full use of Fan Zeng's advice. Liu Bang's leadership had two notable qualities. He embraced good deeds and diverse opinions, incorporating others' strengths into his leadership. He also shared all spoils of war with his men, much like profit sharing in modern companies to win loyalty and dedication. Xiang Yu was the opposite in these respects. Overconfident, he ignored crucial advice from Fan Zeng. Additionally, he was greedy, hoarding treasures and denying them to others, which led to dissatisfaction and defection among his generals. His stinginess was almost comical. He hesitated even in rewarding his deserving officers, as if he would lose something personally. Liu Bang and Xiang Yu also differed in their treatment of soldiers and the public. After capturing the strategic city of Xianyang, Liu Bang wisely withdrew his troops to avoid temptations that might loosen military discipline, which included looting and other misconduct. Instead, he issued a simplified legal code known as the 3 Articles, which promised harsh punishment only for the most severe crimes, marking a significant departure from the previous oppressive laws of the Qin dynasty. He invited the local elite of Xianyang to live peacefully under his rule, promising them security and prosperity. In contrast, when Xiang Yu entered Xianyang, he looted and caused destruction, losing the people's support. The citizens of Xianyang, having experienced the conduct of both leaders, clearly favored Liu Bang over Xiang Yu. 44. Winning hearts is the supreme strategy. Winning the hearts of people is more effective than winning their cities. One who can win hearts doesn't even need to attack to bring down fortresses. During the Three Kingdoms period, the famous general from Shu, Zhuge Liang, dedicated himself to restoring the Han dynasty after being entrusted with the care of Liu Bei's orphaned son. Every day, he planned how to launch a campaign to the north and unify central China. However, Zhuge Liang had a constant concern. The southern tribes, then unassimilated and often disruptive, posed a threat to his plans. To address this, Zhuge Liang consulted his military advisor. Ma Su believed that military conquest alone wouldn't secure long-term peace with these tribes, as they would just retreat and regroup. He suggested that winning their hearts and minds would lead to a lasting peace and reduce future disruptions. This approach of winning hearts over was seen as a superior strategy. Zhuge Liang liked this idea and repeatedly shared it with his generals before any campaign. He specifically ordered that the leaders of any rebellion should be captured alive, not killed. He demonstrated this when he captured a tribal leader, Meng Huo, multiple times and released him each time to win his trust and loyalty. Eventually, Meng Huo was so moved by Zhuge Liang's mercy and integrity that he vowed never to oppose the Shu Han again, solidifying a lasting alliance. After stabilizing the region, Zhuge Liang implemented a policy called using the natives to govern the natives, appointing tribal leaders to govern their own people. This strategy greatly reduced the administrative burden and secured peace and loyalty from the tribes, showcasing another successful example of winning hearts to achieve harmony. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 45. The power of character. Authority comes from the strength of character. Even without formal power, a strong character commands respect. Without character, one may have authority but lacks credibility. The previous section discusses ways to win over people and offers examples of success and failure. Missteps here can easily be seen as mere play acting. For instance, sucking the pus out of a soldier's wound to gain favor is a low form of influence. Consider a scene in a movie where a portly general inspects a unit and straightens a soldier's uniform, jokingly pinching his nose and calling him "this little devil." To us viewers, this act feels insincere. If we can see through such actions, what can be said about their effectiveness? The fundamental and most crucial element to remember is the power of character. This doesn't need to be announced or dramatized. It should be evident in everyday behavior. Of course, capability is also essential in influencing others. No matter how noble the character, without competence, one can't be a general to lead others. Conversely, even with high capability, if one lacks intrinsic appeal in interpersonal relationships, they can't win hearts. Thus, two conditions are vital: capability and interpersonal appeal. Capability is undeniable. Interpersonal appeal involves several aspects, with character strength being the most important. A noble character earns deep respect. This is a constant persuasion that doesn't need words. In today's self-promotional culture, many overlook this type of persuasion. For example, while advertising is necessary, the quality of a product is what ultimately persuades consumers. If a product has trusted quality, minimal or no advertising can still win widespread acceptance. This is the essence of true persuasion. The folk saying quoted in historical records, "The Annals of General Lee," states, "Peaches and plums do not speak, but fall to the ground and naturally make a path." This implies that those with noble character don't need to boast. People recognize and are drawn to their virtues. General Li Guang of the Han Dynasty, known for his military exploits against the Xiongnu in the north, is a historic figure whose actions spoke louder than words. Despite numerous victories, he held modest positions and tragically ended his life, overwhelmed by criticism from the court. His suicide moved not just his soldiers but also the public, reflecting his respected standing due to his martial prowess and his adherence to law and dignity. Li Guang was known for his disregard for wealth, sharing any rewards with his subordinates, and living simply, just like his soldiers. His actions earned the deep respect and loyalty of those around him, proving that true leadership and influence come from one's character, not just words or commands. 46. Calm amidst chaos. The strategic composure of Tai'an in ancient China. A great disaster was about to strike, yet he remained calm as if nothing was happening. Among politicians who succeeded without much talk, Tai'an of the Eastern Jin dynasty in ancient China was one such figure. During a chaotic historical period in northern China, known as the 5 Barbarians and 16 Kingdoms era, where many kingdoms were violently changing rulers, life was very unstable. In contrast, the Eastern Jin dynasty in the south maintained relative stability. Ta'an came from a noble family, was cultured and well-educated, and lived a life of luxury and ease, admired by all. He had an exceptional demeanor which enhanced his reputation. When the threats from the northern tribes approached, many high-ranking individuals pushed for Ta'an to take a significant role in government to support the dynasty, and he eventually entered officialdom. When he became the prime minister, the situation was dire. The biggest threat was the growing power of the northern tribes, which were close to invading the south. His primary task was to defend against these invasions. Ta'an, a scholar and poet, was not skilled in battle. Surprisingly, he appointed his nephew, Ta-Huyen, to lead the military, showing his impartial judgment in selecting capable leaders regardless of personal relations. Soon the Qin forces, claiming to number 1 million, attacked the eastern Jin, whose forces did not exceed 80,000. The disparity was vast, and both the court and the common people were anxious. Ta-Huyen, as the top military commander, faced immense pressure. Yet, Ta'an was the only one who remained calm, appearing unbothered even when discussing mundane topics like food and housing with his nephew. His calm demeanor was not from ignorance but a strategic choice to maintain stability, much like the empty fort strategy used by famous historical figures. Eventually, Ta-Huyen led the Eastern Jin forces to a decisive victory in the famous Battle of Fei River, a classic example of winning despite being outnumbered, demonstrating the effectiveness of psychological warfare and calm leadership. Even after hearing of the victory, Ta'an continued playing chess with friends, reacting minimally. This behavior before and after the battle showed his capacity to remain unaffected by emotions, significantly influencing his subordinates psychologically and helping secure the victory both on the battlefield and in spirit. It's said that the ultimate victory in the Battle of Fei River stemmed from Ta'an's ability to maintain his composure under pressure, a testament to the power of psychological resilience in leadership. 47. The power of silence. The power of silence is a deep strategy and implies profound meanings that cannot be conveyed through words alone, but understood through intentions. Everyone knows that Zhuangzi was a pioneer in collecting and compiling Taoist texts, discussing a lot about philosophy in his works. His book, Zhuangzi, also talks about the art of achieving great things without saying a word. In the chapter The Spirit of the Silent, there's a story recorded during Confucius's travels through the state of Chu. When the king of Chu heard that Confucius had arrived, he hosted a lavish banquet, attended by wise and talented ministers like Shi Nam Yi Liao and others. The king of Chu said, "I have long admired you, sir, and am honored to meet you today. Please share your wisdom with us." Confucius replied, "I have studied the power of silence, though I haven't spoken much about it to others. Today, inspired by the achievements of your ministers, I feel compelled to discuss this topic." Confucius continued, "For instance, when Shi Nam Yi Liao was playing a calm game of toss and turn, and a traitor's messenger came to enlist him, he simply dismissed the messenger, thus protecting the families from disaster. Similarly, when Minister Sun Shuao was lying comfortably in bed enjoying music, he thought of a brilliant strategy that saved thousands in Chu by repelling external threats. These examples demonstrate the power of silence, which is highly admirable. There is some skepticism about the authenticity of these records. Considering the context, Confucius praising the king's ministers right in front of him seemed overly flattering, not quite fitting the moral standards typically associated with Confucius. Many stories in Zhuangzi are like fables, with characters that may not correspond to historical figures. Whether Confucius held these thoughts is also questionable. Often, Confucius is brought onto the stage to express many ideas of Laozi or Zhuangzi, possibly for specific purposes or to hide sensitive issues. Essentially, Confucius serves to promote and disseminate the philosophies of Laozi and Mencius. Speaking of achieving without words, Zhuangzi includes an interesting story. There was once a master of cockfighting named GGZ, renowned for his training skills during that time. King Zhu Yuan of Chu, who enjoyed pleasures, summoned GGZ to train a champion rooster. After 10 days, the king couldn't wait any longer and urged, "How is my rooster doing? Can it fight yet?" GGZ replied, "Not yet, Your Majesty. Though fierce-looking, it still misses its kicks and thinks too highly of itself." After another 10 days, the king returned, and GGZ said, "It's still not ready. It assumes a defensive stance at every sound." 10 days later, GGZ approached the king. "Your Majesty, you can take your rooster back. When other roosters crow, yours shows no reaction at all. From a distance, it looks like it's made of wood, which shows it has been effectively trained. A rooster like this will win wherever it fights." GGZ's training methods belong to the expertise of a cockfighting master. Zhuangzi records this story like a fable, meant to illustrate a point about people, something you'll gradually understand as you read. 48. The wisdom in playing the fool. It's a true art to be skillful in appearing clumsy and to hide your wisdom behind a facade of foolishness. If one masters this in life, they've truly reached the pinnacle of skill. During the Warring States period, ideas were highly dynamic, and many philosophers rose to prominence. Among them was Yangtze, a thinker who advocated for self-interest. One day, Yangtze sought advice from Laozi, who had just returned from a trip to the state of Qin. To show his sincerity, Yangtze waited at Daliang, a place Laozi would pass through on his way home, and finally met him there. Regardless of Yangtze's humility upon meeting, Laozi bluntly said, "I once thought you were worth meeting, but now that I have, I wish I hadn't." After saying this, Laozi walked away, leaving Yangtze without any dignity. Embarrassed but determined, Yangtze silently followed Laozi to his residence and knelt to ask for guidance. Yangtze sincerely expressed, "The few words you spoke at Daliang were lessons I had never encountered in my life. Therefore, I ask you to speak frankly." Moved by his attitude, Laozi shared his thoughts. "All right, I'll tell you. The truth is, you need to pretend to be a bit foolish to be appropriate." After Laozi finished speaking, he said no more. Yangtze found these words profoundly insightful. After parting with Laozi, Yangtze's way of interacting with others changed completely. Initially, when he arrived in Daliang, he was very proud and arrogant, considering himself a major philosopher. The people at the inn deferred to him, and the innkeeper was eager to please. But reflecting on that now, Yangtze found it amusing. Laozi's advice to feign a bit of foolishness struck a chord with him, and this experience was transformative. Since then, Yangtze became a different person. Historical records show that Laozi was uncompromising in his teachings. He was just as straightforward with Confucius when they first met, a rarity in Confucius's time. Laozi once told Confucius, "A truly superior person naturally possesses virtues greater than others. However, because he is genuinely superior, he often conceals it and does not act rashly, leading others to think him foolish. Today, I see that you are arrogant, with a face full of stubborn character, and your gaze only acknowledges those above you, not those below. In truth, you are a man of many desires." This sharp criticism was typical only of Laozi, a thinker of the highest order who disdained fame and fortune and could uniquely observe and advise Confucius. Laozi also left a brilliant argument for reflection. Under the rule of a wise king, the people forget that he exists. Under a lesser king, they sing praises because of their admiration for him. Under an even lesser king, they fear him. And under the worse king, all the people feel is contempt. 49. Observing people, the Confucian approach, listening to what people say, examining their facial expressions, and observing their actions are the key points in Confucius's method of studying people. Know yourself and know others, and you will win all battles. Originally a famous saying from Sun Tzu's discussions on military strategy, is widely applicable today across various social activities, especially in fields requiring skills such as research communication and persuasion. This saying has transcended time and space over 2,000 years of history, continuously reminding us of the wisdom of ancient philosophers. Ancient literary figures like Confucius and Mencius have left us unique insights and methods for interacting with others. Confucius advocated judging others based on their actions, while Mencius emphasized judging through one's eyes, believing that a person's pupils reveal their true nature. Bright pupils indicate integrity, whereas dull eyes suggest malevolence. Despite attempts to hide their true intentions, one cannot conceal the malevolence in their heart when directly confronted. Mencius developed his method over many years, suggesting that keen observation skills require long-term practice enriched by diverse life experiences. It's said that sharp lawyers are particularly good at this type of observation, often able to discern truth from deception through a person's eyes during a first encounter. This intuitive judgment is not simple. It requires deep expertise. Confucius placed greater emphasis on actions than words. In the Analects, it is noted that the cheerful eloquence of a gentleman is less significant than the certainty of his actions. Actions should take precedence over words, a view echoed throughout Confucius's teachings. Confucius once expressed disappointment in a student who was skilled in rhetoric but lacked in actions, indicating that words alone are not enough to earn trust. Both Confucius and Mencius, as profound scholars, believed that their perspectives were justified by their extensive and often difficult life experiences. Summarizing their methods, they emphasize three key aspects. 1. Observing the eyes of others. 2. Analyzing the speech of others. 3. Investigating the actions of others.
If you like this video, please comment 1, and if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
50. Talent assessment methods. Assessing talent, especially during the tumultuous Warring States period, required integrity as the primary selection criterion despite the chaotic times. In these times, a great thinker, Mozi, advocated for universal love, similarly to Confucius, focusing on observing a person's actions to understand their motives and intentions. King Lu once consulted Mozi about his two sons. One loved reading and the other enjoyed giving to others, and asked who should be the heir. Mozi replied that liking to read or give are both good traits, but often people might act out of hidden self-interest. Therefore, to choose an heir, it's essential to understand why they do what they do and their ultimate goal. Mencius also shared this view when King Xuan of Qi asked him about assessing talent. Mencius advised that it's risky to trust only the recommendations from those close to the king or high officials. Instead, if the common people recognize someone as talented, and the king observes this too, likely the choice will be correct. The Prime Minister, Duke Tai of the state of Chu, once discussed with King Wen how to recognize and utilize talent. He suggested that relying on general opinion might help identify the most beneficial candidates, as talented individuals are often blocked by others forming factions. Li Kui, a pioneer of the legalist school and an advisor to King Wen of Wei, also discussed selecting a prime minister. He proposed not simply choosing between two highly qualified officials, as that could seem biased. Instead, he suggested considering how these candidates behave under different circumstances, when they lack opportunities, when they have wealth, when they are in power, when they are in difficult situations, and when they are in need. These conditions reveal more about a person's character than just talent and education. Ultimately, King Wen chose Wei Chengzi as his prime minister based on these considerations. He realized that while both candidates recommended by Minister Zhuo Huang were competent, Wei Chengzi's recommendations stood out in critical ways, leading to his selection. 51. The Observant and the Harmless: How to Read Faces and Speech. In ancient China, observing someone's facial expressions and speech was a wise strategy for self-preservation. We have previously discussed the character, the observant. He was indeed a complex figure. As a key official in the royal court and a member of the royal family, he was especially significant. For example, he supported King of Qi, who was his half-brother. To outsiders, the observant might seem like a favored royal prince, but he was acutely aware of how dangerous this status and his family connections could be. It has always been thus. A king is a king, and a subject is a subject. Although the King of Qi was an ordinary ruler, the observant always reminded himself never to overstep the respect due to a monarch. The observant secretly maintained a force in the region of Ji, where he supported 3,000 dependents, enjoying a favored status among his peers. But he also knew that, under the authoritarian monarchy, mishandling any situation could jeopardize his position as prime minister, which was as precarious as a lamp in the wind. This unique situation required him to have a deep understanding to wisely protect himself. After the Queen of Qi passed away, her position remained unfilled. Who would take this role was of great interest to the observant, the prime minister. Leaving the queen's position vacant for too long was not advisable, and appointing a new queen was not a simple arrangement, as it could significantly impact politics. Especially then, as the power of the Qi state was declining, the issue of the queen was very sensitive. The observant and the king were half-brothers, but they were not close, and bringing up such a subject directly with the king could be seen as impolite. Ignoring the issue wasn't wise either, as it could leave unresolved political dangers. After much thought, the observant came up with a clever plan. When the king was in a particularly good mood, enjoying the company of his 7 beautiful young concubines, the observant presented him with 7 pairs of jade earrings he had prepared in advance. While they all looked similar, one pair was made of a particularly fine jade. Knowing the king's expertise in luxury, the observant anticipated that he would gift this pair to his favorite concubine, who could then be suggested as the new queen. Everything proceeded as the observant had planned, helping him navigate a political crisis with his wisdom. Another character, the Harmless, also once served as prime minister in the state of Han and faced a similar situation. He too overcame the challenge with his quick thinking. However, he was not regarded as ethical as the observant, and thus faced much subtle criticism later. In the neighboring state of Wei, war broke out with Zhao, becoming increasingly brutal. Han, having good relations with both, was in a sensitive position as the weakest of the 7 states during the Warring States period. The king of Han was indecisive, troubled by how to handle the situation. He consulted the Harmless for advice. The Harmless did not respond directly, mainly because he was unsure of the king's true feelings. Instead, he asked for 2 more days to think it over. After using a delay strategy, he consulted 2 wise ministers who freely shared their thoughts. The Harmless then observed the king's reactions and, combining this with his own thoughts, aligned his final advice with the king's preferences, impressing him greatly with his skill. The Harmless's actions, though not entirely ethical, were merely a clever way to preserve himself, much like the observant. But the latter had crossed a line that was seen more as theft, taking credit for others' ideas. My classical literature teacher often got excited when discussing these stories, using them to comment on modern issues humorously, comparing some to the harmless as stealing others' academic research. 52. The art of reading minds. That's all you need. People are hard to predict. By understanding people's true feelings, you can navigate all situations smoothly and succeed in your endeavors. What's the real challenge in persuasive speaking? It's not about having extensive knowledge or being a great orator, nor is it about lacking courage in dangerous situations. The hardest part is understanding your opponent's true thoughts and feelings. This was once remarked by Han Fei, a famous strategist during the Warring States period and a pioneer of the legalist philosophy. He believed that a key skill for any persuader is to grasp the heart of their audience, a skill that is essential for success and that has been demonstrated through many historical examples. Even today, nearly 2,200 years later, these principles from the past still hold relevance. Han Fei, well known for such insights, tragically died when, as an envoy to the state of Qin, he was attacked by Qin officials due to a lack of practical alignment with his theories, or possibly because he couldn't endure the harsh realities of life. He may not have been a typical politician, but rather a symbol of intellectuals with a more sensitive nature. Unlike Han Fei, there was another figure named Chun Yu Kun. He might not have been as theoretically profound as Han Fei, but he was practically resilient and patient, especially skilled in understanding and mastering the psychology of his opponents. He wrote a book titled The Art of Reading Minds, which captured essential real-life strategies. His ability to navigate social interactions flexibly was based on his self-developed techniques. When Chun Yu Kun was younger, with the help of friends, he had the chance to meet King Wei. His broad knowledge and debating skills had already made him somewhat famous. King Wei had high expectations for their meeting. In their first meeting, Chun Yu Kun remained silent, not saying a word, which puzzled the king. They rescheduled for another meeting. In their second meeting, King Wei dismissed everyone else, hoping Chun Yu Kun would speak more this time. However, Chun Yu Kun remained silent again, like a statue, which displeased the king. A renowned debater was expected to speak, not remain silent. The king thought Chun Yu Kun was indifferent to him. After this, the king's friend who had introduced Chun Yu Kun scolded him for his indifference. Chun Yu Kun calmly explained that he had not spoken because King Wei wouldn't have listened anyway. The first time, the king was distracted by a new horse, and the second time, by beautiful music. The friend relayed this to King Wei, who was astonished by Chun Yu Kun's perceptiveness. Chun Yu Kun's keen observation of King Wei's expressions and state of mind allowed him to guess the king's preoccupations accurately, greatly impressing the king. Their third meeting went differently. King Wei was more receptive, and their conversation lasted 3 days and nights. Understanding the opponent's psychology is a crucial skill for any persuader, as demonstrated by Chun Yu Kun. Like Chun Yu Kun, Tuo Tan also practiced a form of psychological strategy, broadly applying policies and studying tactics to predict others' thoughts. Chun Yu Kun risked remaining silent during their meetings, a risky move that could have cost him a great opportunity. But his courage, combined with his knowledge and the king's eagerness for talented advisors, paid off, leading to his rise to a prominent position. Taking risks often requires talent, doesn't it? If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.